The boy was called Filth, even though he was born as the noblest man in the land. Still, just a bastard child in everyone's eyes. He had nothing to his name but contempt from others. If he had any ability at all, it was healing. The heavens had blessed them with that power, and in this world, those who trained in the art of healing were known as healers. They were respected and lived in comfort, no matter where they came from. So for a bastard like him, there was no other way to be accepted by society than to become a healer. Even with all the late-night studying and hard work, he's still pretty lousy at healing. One just can't make up for a lack of natural talent by trying harder. 5 years have gone by and he's still stuck as an apprentice. For most healers, it's just a job, but for him, it's a daily struggle where he's constantly looked down on and mocked by others for being useless and foolish. Everyone treats this blonde kid like he's top-tier trash, especially since he's the son of someone so great. Then one day, something weird happens in the library that scares the hell out of him. A blue window suddenly appears in front of him, saying the player has awakened as a doctor. It's like a miracle for this guy, someone who never thought his life could turn around. At first, he figures he must be hallucinating from exhaustion. He's never even heard a word like that before, and if he had to imagine anything, he'd rather it be a healthy delusion than this. Then out of nowhere, there's a flash of light, everything goes bright, and suddenly his clothes change like he's the one in charge of an operating room. Just like that, he sees a body in front of him, bleeding out with unstable vitals. Someone calls for a transfusion, and he has no clue what's going on. Words like clamps, forceps, and levofed are being thrown around, and none of it makes sense to him, yet somehow, he knows exactly what to do. The meanings just pop into his head, like they were there all along. On top of that, he's even holding his hands above his waist without thinking, like he's keeping them sterile, and he suddenly realizes he's a doctor about to perform surgery on a ruptured spleen, which is a splenectomy. Deep down, he knows no amount of healing magic could save this patient, but medical science might actually keep him alive. Then, in a flash, he's snapped back to reality, and it feels like only a second has passed. The idea of cutting open someone's stomach to help them seems like some twisted form of healing to him, almost barbaric, like some kind of fake magic. With a nervous laugh, he tells himself it's just a strange dream from overworking. But deep down, he knows it wasn't. Somehow, he has a gut feeling that this way of healing is much better and more reliable than what's usually done. In the land of Lepentina, healing magic doesn't help many sick patients, but medical science actually gets the job done. The guy's head is spinning like crazy when a window pops up, congratulating him on awakening to a new occupation as a grade SSS doctor. It tells him to check his status window, where his name appears as Dr. Raymond, or we will be calling him Dr. Ray from time to time. His occupation level is listed as Novice Resident, and his title is Dirty Bastard. On top of that, he has no experience points or skill points at level 1. His academic skills show surgery at D, general medicine at C, beginner medicine at C, herbology at S, and pathology at A. He also has a class skill called Heart of Steel at D, but no bonus skill. The blue window suggests he earn experience points to level up and unlock the full potential of his doctor abilities. Even though it makes no sense, he's certain this is some kind of miracle. Just then, someone barges in and starts mocking him for hanging around all day. Shaken, Raymond stands up to leave, but the bald-headed bully dumps a bucket of dirty water over him, saying he belongs here in this pile of rags since he couldn't even reach grade F. There's no way he could offer anything to Belland Infirmary. Within seconds, a whole crowd gathers at the door, whispering and laughing about why this loser still hasn't given up. They say he should stop disgracing the name of this place. Suddenly, his friend cuts in and warns that if a certain someone hears those insults, the bully's going to be in serious trouble. They're all so chill about everything, since to them, that loser is just a bastard anyway. Apparently, that certain someone is actually the one who got him into the prestigious infirmary in the first place. But everyone's pretty sure that person only brought him here hoping he'd die in a ditch somewhere and stop being a burden. Filthy water drips from his face as he hears every word. Out of nowhere, someone calls Raymond Almond, saying that Master Lance wants to see him. Chills run down his spine and he rushes over. At the Master Healer's room, he bows to this arrogant big shot, who starts talking about how the Shadow Prince has been stuck as an apprentice for 5 years, while most people graduate in about 2. Lance mocks him, pointing out how he started a year before Ray, yet already became a senior grade B healer and a master healer. Healer Ray, sweating bullets, tries to flatter him, saying it's thanks to Master Lance's incredible talent. That's when Lance mentions how the other certified healers all agree there's no way in hell Dr. Ray could ever become a real healer. Right then, this arrogant jerk fires him from his apprenticeship. Our guy completely loses it and drops to his knees, bowing to the ground and begging for just one more chance. Lance tells him the only reason he was allowed to stay this long was because of his birth father, and that someone as useless as him would have been kicked out after just a year. Raymond is at a loss because being a healer is the only thing keeping society from writing him off as completely worthless. If he gets expelled now, there's no way he'll ever become a real healer. Suddenly, a blue window pops up, showing that Healer Ray can perform surgeries on patients. That's when it hits him. He can actually treat people using that. So, an idea sparks in his head, and he begs for one last chance to prove himself by treating a patient. He's sure that even if he's stuck at grade F with his medical science knowledge, he can still become a proper healer. Now Doc Ray is practically on his knees, begging Master Lance to give him just one patient to treat. He swears he'll heal them and earn his way back into the Belland Infirmary with that one chance. Master Lance, wearing a sinister smirk, asks if Raymond thinks this is some kind of game. Then something clicks in his mind, and he suddenly knows exactly what to do. He hands Ray a patient's file and tells him to heal this one. If he can pull it off, he won't be expelled. On Lankin Street, this novice resident walks with a storm of self-doubting thoughts, clutching the papers tightly in his hands. He wonders if he can really pull this off, especially when he's never even treated a patient before. Then he reaches the place, takes a deep breath, knocks on the door, and tries to prepare himself for what's coming. The lad is certain that if he fails, he's done for. He'll get the boot without even finishing his apprenticeship, and this is probably his last shot. If he messes this up, he'll lose the chance to take the qualification exam and be forcefully labeled as an uncertified, unofficial healer. Not to mention, he could get arrested and thrown in prison too, which would spark rumors about the bastard turning into a criminal. First, a bastard, now a convict. People would say that a certain someone would never be able to wipe that stain off. They'd think it'd be better if Raymond just gave up on life altogether. He swallows hard and gets ready to go in, but out of nowhere, the door swings open and smacks him right in the head, knocking him flat on his back. The girl on the other side freaks out when she sees that she's hit him and scattered all his papers across the floor. Right then, she spots the Belland Infirmary symbol and asks if he's really from there. Tears of joy stream down her face as she rushes over to welcome him, clearly desperate for help. She calls out to her mom, shouting that the healer they sent has finally arrived. Her mom comes out, stunned to see him at the door. Ray gets back on his feet and greets them with as much confidence as he can muster. The girl's mom respectfully shows him inside. When our guy tries to explain that he's just an apprentice, she brushes it off and begs him to save her husband no matter what. She admits they weren't expecting anyone to come since they couldn't afford help, and they were preparing to watch her husband die right in front of them. After reading through the patient's history, the newbie resident sees that the man has a severe infection around his hip, something that would normally need a grade B healer to handle. But apparently, poor patients don't get the luxury of high-level treatment. Instead, they're stuck watching their loved ones slowly die right in front of them. It's the same heartbreaking scene he went through as a kid, begging the infirmary staff to save his mom. He had bawled his eyes out, promised to work harder to pay them back, and offered the only coin he had. And now it's this mom doing the begging to save her husband, and the crying daughter pleading for her father's life. After that, Raymond asks to see the patient, and the family happily shows him the way in. A blue window suddenly pops up, praising his volunteering spirit and awarding him a special bonus along with 5 skill points. He's not exactly sure what skill points are, so he checks. Turns out, they can be earned by completing special tasks or quests and later used to buy skills that help with treating patients. As luck would have it, Raymond has just received a scalpel-level medical science quest to treat his very first patient, which could earn him 10 skill points and a bonus level up. Just thinking about treating his first patient makes it all feel huge, and while he knows he's here for personal reasons, the fire inside him is burning strong. He wants to save this patient no matter what. Maybe he can't do it himself, but with his medical knowledge, there's still a chance. Without further ado, he picks up the Surgery D skill, which focuses solely on operation treatments, but can't handle advanced procedures. He also needs 50 points to level up. This doesn't bring his spirits down, as he knows that leveling up will make things easier. Sooner or later, he'll become an amazing healer and a man of honor in everyone's eyes. Just as he enters to announce his presence, he can't help but notice the awful smell coming off the patient. It's hard to breathe, which sends him into a panic, wondering what he's even supposed to do. His mind goes blank, but he tries to pull himself together, activating his class skill, Heart of Steel. Although the skill isn't perfect, it gets better with leveling up and gives the doctor an unshaken, steely will. Somehow, this calms his heartbeat, and now he can think clearly about the afflicted area. The mother directs him to the boil forming on her husband's hip, which keeps swelling. The patient's fever seems to be getting worse with every passing minute, and he can't even get out of bed. For starters, Raymond decides to check his vitals first. He confirms it hasn't reached septic shock and that he can be of use here. Afterward, he examines the problematic area and finds a hip abscess, which will be slow healing but is a basic condition that can be easily treated. The mom asks if he will be alright. Even though a high-level treatment from a healer could fix this, he assures her that he'll be fine. From that point on, Raymond asks for clean, boiled water to let it cool, and a clean, sharp knife heated in the fire. This confuses the mom, and she starts questioning what kind of healing this is. The lad straight up says it's surgery. While Dr. Ray tends to the patient, the mother-daughter duo can't help but whisper to each other, wondering what surgery is all about. A few moments later, the novice healer is dressed with a mask on, ready to cut the area, but his mom, freaked out, stops his hand midway. She demands a proper explanation of what he's doing to her husband. The mom, creeped out by the sharp knife, insists that he use healing magic instead. Ray calms her and asks her to trust him this once, to give him the chance to make her family whole again. The mother, still gripping his knife-held hand, finally lets go, realizing she has no other choice but to let him do this. Meanwhile, Raymond's mind is sharp and focused. He knows he can't afford a single mistake. He has to save this man no matter what. Out of nowhere, he flashes back to an operating theater where he ordered his team to stop a bleeding artery to prevent cardiac arrest. That calm state of cool heads and fiery hearts, as described in general medicine, is exactly what he needs now. Thanks to that knowledge, draining an abscess of this size actually feels pretty simple. Honestly, it's barely even worthy of being called a surgery. The Shadow Prince makes a careful slit into the swollen area and lets the foul-smelling pus drain out. He shakes for a second, but quickly pulls himself together, trying his best to act like a real doctor. For the next step, he carefully cleans the drainage using a clean cloth until no pus remains under the skin. Then, he methodically cuts away all the dead tissue piece by piece with his scalpel. With complete focus, Raymond finishes the procedure, and the infected skin can finally breathe. To wrap it up, he treats the surrounding area with a natural antibiotic herb potion. Once done, Ray stands up and proudly announces that it's over. The mother and daughter immediately light up with big smiles, rushing over to see her husband. The newbie resident finds no trace of fever. He assures them that the recovery will take only a few more days. The mother bows deeply, thanking the Shadow Prince for doing what no one else was willing to do. She tells him how many infirmaries they had visited, how all of them demanded more money, and not a single one truly looked at her husband properly. She, overwhelmed with gratitude, calls this dirty bastard a saint for their family. That hits him harder than he expected, but what surprises him even more is when the little girl suddenly jumps in to hug him. It's the first time Raymond has ever heard words of true thanks, and in that moment, he finally feels the pure joy of saving a life. Later on, this dude goes back to let Master Lancer know he saved the guy, but Lancer doesn't buy a single word coming from what he sees as a bold-faced liar. Raymond understands though, coming from a grade F- healer, it does sound hard to believe. He couldn't even save a life before. But healing isn't some almighty power where you just place your hands and cure any disease. In Lapentina, the healing ability works by boosting a person's vitality. As it turns out, stirring the body's vitality this way can create powerful healing effects for several illnesses, but in some cases, it doesn't make any difference at all. For Raymond's first patient, he treated a hip abscess. Boosting vitality with healing would have been completely useless as long as the infection remained in the body. Lapentina's treatment methods appear to have significant issues. They've put all their focus on healing and never bothered to explore any other approaches. Lancer, clearly irritated about this, decides he wants to see it for himself, and if this bastard's lying, he's definitely got something coming. He slams the door shut on Raymond's face. Raymond calms himself down, knowing he has done nothing wrong. Suddenly, the Windows flashes in his face to award him 10 skill points. He leveled up, and his occupation would only change when he hits level 40 from novice resident to skilled resident. Slowly, Raymond realizes his progress might make him a specialist and then a professor. Also, he got a special bonus, but he doesn't get what's extra stat points are for, though he receives one each time for leveling up. He knows attunement helps with doing surgeries, but has no clue what the stats are for. After taking a close look, he figures strength is related to stamina, and attunement is related to controlling fine, delicate movement. Intelligence uses academic knowledge efficiently, and one more feature that's hidden until the criteria are met to unlock it. He considers using his extra points on his attunement, recalling his not-so-steady hand when cleaning that abscess. Ray, thrilled and full of hope, can't believe he might really become an amazing healer someday. Even someone ranked as low as grade F- can still climb the ladder and maybe become the greatest healer Lapentina has ever seen. Just then, Lancer barges in, scoffing that the patient must have recovered on his own, and throws Raymond another challenge to prove himself at the almshouse. This time, luck won't save him. But that doesn't shake Raymond's spirit. In fact, he sees the almshouse as the perfect place to start leveling up. The place is pretty much an emergency room, though there's just one problem. When he gets there, the other guys immediately start mocking him like he's some kind of high-class trash. Raymond realizes he might not even get to see a single patient. If he doesn't treat someone within the next 2 weeks, he'll definitely lose his apprenticeship. So now he's got to find a way out, and fast. With only 2 weeks to prove he's worth keeping in the almshouse, Raymond knows Lance is just waiting for him to fail. There's no luck to back him up this time. Meanwhile, the place is an absolute mess, with every healer running around like it's some kind of corporate job, rushing through patients like clockwork. At this rate, Raymond might see a patient once a year, let alone in a fortnight. Time's not on his side, so he has to make his own opportunity. Looking around, his eyes land on Hansen, an average grade C apprentice who's busy sweeping the floors. Without wasting a second, Dr. Ray grabs the broom from him and flips on his nice person mode, all smiles as he tells Hansen to take a break because he's earned it. Though his friendly nature has its limits when it comes to how apprentices act, Raymond takes on the cleaning duty just to score some points in Hansen's good books. Hansen actually appreciates the gesture. On top of that, Healer Ray tells him to count on him, especially for the boring stuff like handling bandages and herbs. But then Hansen's anxiety kicks in at the thought of Ray getting close to a patient, worried it might set off the others. Sensing the nerves, Raymond flashes his classic puppy dog eyes, assuring Hansen that everything will be fine. He adds that most of the other guys stay in their rooms unless a new patient shows up, so no one's even going to notice. Still, there's a bit of hesitation in Hansen's voice, and that's when Raymond pulls out his signature victim card, pretending to sulk and offering to return the broom like a sad little kid. Hansen straight up says a flat no to refusing such an offer. It makes sense, since the almshouse cleaning job is the worst kind of hassle, and skipping it would honestly make anyone's day. Raymond genuinely means it, but he keeps the whole leveling up plan to himself. No need for Hansen to know everything. A little while later, Ray gets to bandage a patient and earn some experience points. Every time he helps a patient, his experience goes up. These small efforts are clearly working in his favor, and now it's already been 3 days. Raymond finally hits level 4 and decides to invest his extra points into attunement so he can sharpen his surgery skills. He keeps helping patients day after day, imagining the path that'll soon lead him to becoming the greatest healer of all time. From there, it'll be a rags to riches story with a 5-story marble house, endless steak feasts, and the finest wine to sip before bed. Even as the son of the greatest man in the land, he had suffered more than the lowest servant, trapped in misery inside a place meant for royalty. He used to live full of envy toward everyone around him. Suddenly someone catches him off guard, saying he can leave if he wants, and Dr. Ray is thrown off for a second. But he quickly assures the patient that the poultice is on, and they'll feel alright soon enough. This elderly woman finds Raymond super handsome and kind, at least compared to the other healers she's seen in the infirmaries. Raymond smiles and says an aching body doesn't need an aching heart from an unkind healer. It reminds him of the time his own mother suffered from back pain, which made him familiar with this kind of ache early on. The old woman then shares how, even though Lance may be gifted, his nasty attitude never sat right with her. But today, thanks to the Shadow Prince, she's leaving with a warm heart and a big smile. After this, Raymond's blue screen unlocks Friendly Healer thanks to his kindness toward the patient, earning him 5 skill points and a boost in reputation. He knows skill points have something to do with his performance, so after wishing the old woman a good day, he gets back to his chores. With no other choice, he's stuck cleaning again, and the awful smell around the place definitely needs some serious scrubbing. He remembers how Lepentina never really cared much about cleanliness. Even Hansen couldn't get the job done right. Raymond smacks his head, knowing a contaminated facility is terrible for a patient's health. Cleanliness is a pillar of medical science after all. So, he motivates himself by picturing his future wealth as a successful doctor. He scrubs like his life depended on it. He's practically turning the place brand new, and even swears he'll hire a personal cleaner once he makes it big. Though his joints are aching now, he wonders if boosting his strength stat would help. Just then, a flurry of blue windows pops up, unlocking Squeaky Clean, earning him 20 more skill points and some bonus points, and taking him to level 5. With a total of 40 skill points now, Raymond can finally buy new skills and even gain abilities to clean more efficiently. From general to class skills, Ray gets a special bonus on his first purchase and can even grab a unique grade skill for 40 points. He's got 3 options to choose from, including Muscles of Steel, Surgeon's Finesse, and Wise Eyes, all of which are rare and not easily rewarded. It's a tough call, but before he can make a decision, Hansen rushes in with a patient in critical condition, vomiting blood, hematemesis. One glance and Dr. Ray knows this calls for a grade A healer. Sure, healing can help blood coagulate, but in this case, that's highly unlikely to work. Belland Infirmary only has one grade A healer, Director Bucks, and he's currently out treating a noble. The patient is on the verge of death, unless someone performs surgery. Raymond checks his pool of knowledge and finds a procedure that could fix this, but it's normally restricted to high-level residents. Hansen spreads the word in a panic, and Lance shows up to examine the patient. He coldly declares the man as good as dead and sees no point in trying. Raymond storms in, challenging that mindset and asking how they can give up without even trying. He urges Lance to act since he's a grade B healer, and maybe he still has a shot. But Lance is fed up with Ray, wondering where the nerve comes from when the guy's been a failure for 5 years. Lance tells him that if he thinks he's so smart, he should save the patient himself. Raymond knows it's a losing bet, but at this point, the patient's going to die either way. If the man dies because of him, he'll be blamed and thrown out for sure. Just then, the blue window pops up, unlocking Passion of the Healer with the difficulty set too high, allowing Raymond to treat a patient beyond his actual skill level using sheer willpower. He even gets a double level up and 30 skill points. A new medical science quest begins, and Dr. Ray knows that if he messes this up, failure awaits. But when the patient begs him to save his life, Raymond realizes that if he doesn't act now, that man is as good as dead. The hematemesis patient is practically begging Raymond to save him, and Bro knows that if he does nothing, the man will die, and with him, any hope our boy has of staying in the almhouse. But he also knows this case is way beyond his skill level, and if he tries and fails, the result might still be the same. It would honestly be smarter to stick with easier cases for the next 2 weeks. Still, his conscience won't let him walk away from the patient's desperate coughing and pleas for help. He silently prays for strength, and out of nowhere, Heart of Steel activates. With a clear mind, the Shadow Prince makes a vow to practice medicine for the sake of humanity. He won't just stand by while fear and doubt take a man's life. Then he rushes over to Lance and asks for a chance to treat the patient. Lance calls him a mad brat but steps aside, curious to see if Raymond's luck will pull through again. The others leave too, giving Raymond full control of the case. As he gets ready, doubt starts creeping in, since surgery isn't something one person can just do alone. But right then, Hansen shows up and quietly asks if Raymond needs help. He admits he felt awful just thinking about letting someone die without even trying. Raymond gratefully accepts, though Hansen is still nervous, wondering how 2 below-average nobodies are supposed to pull this off. The Shadow Prince makes it clear they aren't using healing magic, and time's running out, so they'll explain things later. From that point on, he tells Hansen to follow his lead. Without wasting a second, Hansen boils clean water and sterilizes a knife in the fire, then grabs a clean cloth for the patient. Even so, Hansen keeps asking questions out of curiosity, but Ray believes in showing results first. Hansen notices the patient starting to lose consciousness, but this newbie resident had already taken care of that with a bit of hallucinogen. Raymond can't believe he actually prepared some catgut just in time, since the mages in the tower use it all the time. Catgut is a material made from animal intestines that's used to stitch wounds and naturally dissolves inside the body. First things first, Raymond sanitizes the operation site. Hansen, clearly curious, asks what he's doing, and Dr. Ray casually says he's about to perform surgery. The moment he makes the first cut into the patient's stomach, Hansen nearly screams from the shock, calling it blasphemy. Raymond knows how this abdominal operation works, but seeing the fat and muscle tissue up close makes it hit differently. He feels dizzy and more than a little grossed out. Just then, Heart of Steel kicks in, and Dr. Ray gives himself a little pep talk about becoming the best healer in the land. The thought of people admiring him, along with dreams of future wealth and recognition, pushes him to finish the midline incision. Hansen is still totally freaked out and even considers stopping him. But then he sees Ray pouring everything he has into this and remembers just how weak he used to be. Then they spot the yellow fluid leaking from the duodenum, and sure enough, it's a perforated ulcer. Raymond clearly remembers the procedure. He needs to tie off the blood vessels feeding the area and plug the hole. All of a sudden, Healer Ray tells Hansen to lift the left organ, and the dude nearly loses it just hearing that. Even though Raymond knows this procedure inside and out, his hand refuses to make the first incision and actually get things started. The surgery looks like it's about to crash and burn, but Ray quickly shifts into his breathing routine to calm himself down. He also realizes he still hasn't bought the surgery finesse skill yet, even though strength and intelligence are both crucial right now. That's when the blue window pops up, asking if he wants to purchase surgery finesse, and he instantly applies for it. His attunement points go up too, reaching 16. The moment the skill activates, everything changes. As he works on the patient, Raymond's technique becomes noticeably sharper and more confident. Now he has a steady hand, even if his overall skills haven't magically improved. With no more shaking getting in the way, he asks for the cord to tie off the blood vessel and close the hole in the duodenum. While lifting the omentum connected to the stomach, Raymond plugs the perforation with a gram patch and severs the vagus nerve to help stabilize the stomach acid secretions. Then comes the messy part. He wipes off the gastric fluid that's contaminated the peritoneum using sterile water and gets ready to close up. That's how he completes his very first laparotomy, and to his surprise, it unlocks the achievement Father of Surgery, reserving his name in history as a pioneer for future healers. He earns 10 skill points, along with a level-up bonus for successfully treating a case way above his grade. On top of that, he becomes a passionate healer and scores another 30 skill points with some extra bonus leveling. Out of nowhere, Raymond's eyes well up with tears of joy, totally freaking Hansen out. Dr. Ray, with a shaky but warm voice, whispers that he really did it. Word spreads fast, and Lance is absolutely stunned when he hears Raymond actually healed the patient. The informant says he has no clue how it happened, but somehow the patient is recovering just fine. Lance storms off to see it with his own eyes, knowing there's no way a grade F- could have pulled this off. He bursts through the door only to find the great healer and the patient casually chatting like old friends, and Lance has absolutely no idea what kind of miracle he just walked in on. The patient says he owes Raymond big time for saving his life, but Ray tells him to take it easy since they're not out of the woods yet. Suddenly, Master Lance bursts in, yelling and demanding to know if the director healed the patient. The sudden entrance catches Raymond off guard. Lance keeps shouting, demanding to know who healed the guy, insisting there's no way it could have been Raymond. Hesitantly, the Shadow Prince says he did it himself. Lance's fury goes through the roof, thinking Raymond is full of it. Then Raymond drops the real shocker. He didn't even use healing magic. That leaves Lance completely stunned. Knowing he needs a solid explanation, the Shadow Prince says he used an ancient method called medical science to treat the patient. And just like that, he spins a story about how he once tripped and fell off a cliff up north, where he stumbled upon a treasure trove of knowledge about this forgotten practice. Of course, Master Lance doesn't buy a word of it and unleashes his full rage until the patient, fed up, tells him to stop hollering. Then the guy lifts his shirt and shows the surgical incision as proof, leaving Lance completely speechless. On top of that, the patient suddenly recognizes Lance's face, realizing he's the one who had been ready to let him die without even trying to help. Now here he is, trash-talking the only person who actually saved his life. Raymond quickly grabs hold of him, warning him not to get up with those fresh stitches, but the patient completely loses it and snatches the nearest pot to hurl it at Lance. Just his luck, Master Lance ends up getting smacked with a pot full of piss, and he freezes in place, shivering in absolute disgust. The patient roars in anger, warning that he's got a bucket full of feces ready to throw if Lance doesn't get the hell out. Lance bolts out of the room, and the patient shakes his head in disbelief, wondering how someone like that could call himself a healer. He apologizes for making such a mess, which only adds to the Shadow Prince's worries. But to him, it's all worth it. Raymond thanks the patient for standing up for him. After that, the rumors spread like wildfire. People say Raymond just got lucky stopping the bleeding and has no clue what kind of nonsense this so-called medical science even is. When hearing all that, the novice healer isn't surprised at all. He expected it to go this way, since his success didn't do anything to change his reputation in Lepentina. While he's busy scrubbing the floor in the almshouse, Hansen watches him quietly from the side. Then, out of nowhere, Hansen calls out to the Shadow Prince and says he has a change of heart. He snatches the broomstick and takes over cleaning, which completely throws Raymond off. He can't help but notice Hansen's behavior has shifted. Out of the blue, Master Lance lurks out from the shadows and creeps up on him. Healer Ray feels a sudden chill, like someone's watching him. When he turns, he sees Lance's face full of disgust. Somehow, his attitude toward Raymond has changed since that day. Those nasty looks have gone from rude to straight up scary. Even though this kind of behavior used to bother him a lot, Raymond now completely ignores it and doesn't feel a thing. Meanwhile, Lance is fuming like a pressure cooker ready to blow, but none of that shakes Raymond's peace of mind. He's off in his own little world, dreaming about his future as the greatest healer in the land. In his daydreams, he's bathing in gold coins and imagining a life where all the nobles grovel at his feet. But just as he's enjoying the fantasy, a strange chill creeps up his spine. His soul senses something eerie, and sure enough, it's Master Lance sneaking up beside his ear. Raymond turns to him with his best nervous smile, already sensing something is off. With a sly grin, Lance drops the bomb, and Dr. Ray is officially set to depart for the upcoming Royal Name Day celebration. That's something Raymond never expected, and just the thought of it sends a cold wave down his spine. Lance practically yells it in his ear, and Dr. Ray can hardly believe what he's hearing. It's clear now. Lance made this bold move to crush his strange little practice by signing him up for the royal event, probably hoping Raymond will crash and burn in front of the entire nation. And here Lance is, acting like he's doing him a favor. The Name Day celebration is actually a banquet held every year at the royal palace to honor the first king's birthday, and all the nobles show up to celebrate it. Because of the high-profile crowd, the palace healers often fall short in numbers, so extra hands are called in. Every infirmary sends one healer to attend, and being chosen means your skills have been officially recognized, which is a huge honor for any healer. Still, something feels off to the Shadow Prince, even as Lance smugly brags about how only the best apprentice gets such a prestigious chance. While Lance goes on and on about how the Shadow Prince saved a patient with internal bleeding, calling it proof that he's worthy, Raymond sits sulking in the shadows. Through gritted teeth, he mutters, "Monster," under his breath, realizing this is just another setup to humiliate him. The palace is nothing but a nightmare to him, and the memories of the last time he was there come flooding back. How some guys kicked him in the gut like he was a stray dog, told him to die just for being born, like his very existence brought them misery. Compared to that hellhole, the infirmary has been heaven. All the palace ever gave him was beatings and crashes and insults. He was always mocked and blamed for bringing shame to their father's name. They used to call him the Shadow Prince, a nickname that still stings. Even his father turned his back on him, because in the chivalrous kingdom of Houston, a bastard child like him was never supposed to exist. The king's one mistake became Raymond's curse, branding him as a filthy disgrace that tainted the royal bloodline. Now Lance has the nerve to send him back to that place for the festival. Raymond breaks the silence by asking if it has to be him, saying he's totally open to letting someone else take the lead. Master Lance presses him, asking why he's trying to pass up such a golden opportunity, then reminds Raymond that he still holds the authority to decide when his apprenticeship ends. That hits hard, making Raymond rethink everything all over again. He feels like punching this smug jerk, his hand trembling with frustration. Out of nowhere, the window pops up to announce Raymond's next quest, Savior of the Banquet. His mission is to make it through the entire banquet without a single casualty. The quest is graded half scalpel, with high difficulty, and the condition is simple. Attend the banquet to the end and make sure no one dies. If he pulls it off, he'll earn triple experience for leveling up, gain 30 skill points, boost his reputation, and even win someone's favor. This whole thing weirds the doctor out, making him wonder why the reward is so generous, and even 3 times greater than the last quest. The high difficulty bothers him too, and he starts thinking it might be a sign that something serious is about to go down at the banquet. That thought only adds to his anxiety, but despite the nerves, he jumps at the opportunity to go. Still, he's not going for free. In exchange, he demands a healing certification exam sometime after the festival. Honestly, the only reason Raymond signed up to work at this infirmary was because of that exam, and there's no way he would have agreed to this hellhole mission to the palace without something in return. Lance visibly flinches at the thought of letting a grade F- rookie sit for the certification exam. Raymond fires back at Lance, reminding him that he was the one who chose him as worthy enough to attend the royal event. That surely hits a nerve. Then Lance thinks of his next comeback and throws out a challenge. Raymond will only get his way if he performs flawlessly at the banquet. And just like that, Raymond feels like he's hit the jackpot, finally getting closer to his goal. He's on cloud 9, thrilled at the chance of proving himself worthy to take the exam. As soon as he gets that certification, he'll be out of here faster than lightning. And best of all, he won't have to see Lance's disgusting face ever again. Just the thought of it fuels him even more. Afterwards, Raymond finally heads off to the castle he absolutely hates to his core. It's been 5 years since he left that place, and not once has he looked back. Just one glance at it brings up all the traumatic memories that make him want to rip his hair out. He starts flipping out, seriously wondering if it's too late to just turn around and run. Still, Raymond's pretty sure Lance can't fire him after he managed to treat that patient with hematemesis. It's almost guaranteed that Master Lance will roast him anyway, but compared to what he's already endured, that would be child's play. To make things worse, Raymond keeps thinking his skills are still terrible, and he's not even confident he can actually help anyone at the palace. The place will be crawling with top-tier healers from all over the kingdom, which makes him feel like he won't even be needed. But then, a thought clicks. If there's someone who can't get treated by anyone else, that person might die. That idea hits hard, and before he even realizes, his feet are already moving, carrying him farther toward the palace. Even though everyone in that place once treated him like first-class trash, something shifts inside him. Healer Ray finally stops running from it all and tells himself that he's done nothing wrong, so there's no reason to keep running now. Apparently, being born a bastard wasn't his choice to begin with. His father, who happens to be the king, is the one to blame for this whole existential mess, and Dr. Ray's the biggest victim of it. In the past, he would have just kept running from everything, but now his morals won't let him risk letting a patient die when they might need him most. He reminds himself that he's here to treat people, not to serve the palace or anyone in it. Suddenly a window pops up, informing him that his heart of steel has temporarily risen to grade A, triggered by him facing his fears for the sake of patients. He actually feels something warm in his chest, calming down his jittery nerves. He can sense the effect of an A-grade skill kicking in as his pulse starts to settle. With a clearer head, his thoughts shift, and he realizes he could even make a fortune saving a noble's life, just the kind of motivation he needed to get hyped up. On top of that, Raymond decides to buy a new skill to make things easier for himself. He opens up the skill marker and chooses the bonus skill option, only to be shocked when he finds out that skill points can actually be used to learn magic. His heart races with excitement at the thought of maybe one day surpassing real mages, especially with how strange and unique his powers are. Aside from that, he browses through other skill options. He sees Friendly Doctor, Efficient Records, and Facing the Boars listed under common skills. He figures his low level might be hiding some of the more special ones for now, but the thought of the upcoming royal event being swarmed by boorish guests makes him pick the one that fits the situation best. After purchasing Facing the Boars, Raymond receives 30 skill points. The skill lets him react quickly and smoothly when dealing with rude or ill-mannered people, which sounds perfect for what's coming. With everything set up, the novice healer is ready to get moving. Back at the Houston Kingdom, guests are busy praising the king, calling him the greatest for ruling so smoothly and effectively. They say if it weren't for him, the whole kingdom might have fallen apart. The king is known as the Veteran Knight, a brilliant war commander, a wise administrator who cares for his people, and a monarch deeply respected by nobles. Because of all that, no one ever dared criticize him, so instead they put all the blame on Raymond just to protect the king's flawless image. For years, Raymond was tortured and mocked, held responsible for staining the perfect legacy of the king's reign. That's why 5 years ago, the so-called Shadow Prince left the palace on his own. Everyone in the kingdom was glad to see him go, treating him like garbage that finally took itself out. No one ever wanted someone like Raymond to walk freely among them. The rich can't help gossiping about the bastard prince who's apparently a total failure at healing and still stuck as an apprentice. Dr. Ray, standing right there among them, hears every word, and someone in the crowd suddenly recognizes the Shadow Prince. They start mocking him right away, but this time, thanks to his heart of steel at level A, Raymond couldn't care less. In fact, he actually feels unusually handsome today. While admiring his slick looks, he thinks about how badly he wants to make this upgrade to his heart of steel permanent. Out of nowhere, his eyes catch Princess Sophia giving him a look like he's some kind of disgusting bug, just like he remembers. He brushes it off as typical teenage behavior, figuring she either never had a reason to mess with him before, or maybe just wasn't strong enough to do it. As it turns out, Sophia inherited poor health just like the late queen and still doesn't seem to be doing any better. together. Just then, a chill runs down Raymond's spine when someone calls him their rotten little almond. It's Settle, the fourth prince, clearly surprised to find Almond among them. Raymond's body trembles in his presence as painful memories flood back. Memories of how Settle used to treat him like garbage and beat him senseless. Some of those bruises still haunt him even now. The whole situation feels like a mouse cornered by a snake. Settle asks why he's so quiet, wondering if Raymond's finally grown the nerve to ignore the royal family. Then he grabs Raymond by the chin and pulls him in close, making sure all eyes are on him. Raymond's body flinches as a flashback to his horrific memories hits him hard. But before it gets any worse, he forcefully activates Heart of Steel, and just like that, he feels totally at peace, like nothing matters anymore. The system detects Settle's attitude as extremely boorish, which instantly triggers facing the boars. Without missing a beat, Raymond bows respectfully to Settle, completely catching him off guard. Settle is baffled by the sudden display of manners, especially since Raymond has never even spoken to him before. What really throws him off is how calm Raymond is now, considering he used to shake like a leaf just being near him. The redhead stands there confused. Just as he's about to throw his drink in frustration, Ray, looking all innocent like a cute bunny, asks if Settle came over because he's feeling any aches or pains. Settle straight up freezes on the spot, not knowing what the hell that's supposed to mean. Raymond calmly explains that Settle just stepped into the healer's zone, so he figured the prince might need some health care or something. Even though Settle insists he's fine, deep down, he knows something feels off with Ray. Still keeping it polite, Healer Ray tells him he's welcome to head back to the main hall and enjoy the rest of the banquet. That only makes Settle more irritated, especially as Raymond casually turns to the man next to them, who had just sat down after a sudden wave of vertigo. With a gentle touch, Raymond supports the old man and assures him he'll treat whatever illness is stopping him from enjoying the royal banquet. Meanwhile, Settle is still standing there like a statue. Raymond glances back to check on him, which makes Settle even more furious, realizing this little rat is trying to push him away. So Settle decides to play along with Ray's rules and fakes an illness. Raymond asks him to describe his condition so he can take a look. Settle is faking some vague symptoms, like being tired and having no energy, figuring the healer will have a hard time proving it's not real. This fuels Settle's intense desire to destroy him for his weak excuse. Dr. Ray, with a sigh, calmly diagnoses him with excessive drinking. Even seeing his awful brother doesn't cause the slightest change in his aura. He straight up attacks Settle's alcohol abuse daily, which disturbs bodily functions, and in turn, makes him lethargic. He recommends that he dial down a bit on the drinks, and prays that he takes good care of himself. That all knocks the wind out of Settle, who has no clue how to disprove his theory. Raymond wishes him a good evening and lets him go. Settle can't get what's up with this new version of this bastard. Meanwhile, the system gives him the 5 skill points. Even Raymond is proud of himself for tackling that boar and keeping his calm, thanks to that skill. Come to think of it, he can't believe he used to tremble before a dude who couldn't even speak properly and now has a mind like scrambled eggs. For the parting, Raymond gives him the middle finger to his back. Later on, out of nowhere, Princess Sophia walks up to the Shadow Prince and mentions how different he looks now compared to before. She even admits that she used to think of him as a total waste of air. Hearing that, Raymond recalls their past encounters and wonders if her opinion of him has actually changed. Smiling warmly, he compliments her, saying she hasn't changed a bit. She raises an eyebrow and asks if he means her awful temper, but Ray quickly clarifies that he meant she's just as beautiful as he remembers. Then Sophia mentions feeling a bit unwell and says she's going to rest for a moment. When he asks what's going on, she mentions that her speech is coming up soon, so she doesn't have much time to relax. Raymond urges her to get some rest anyway, noting how pale she looks, but she waves him off, saying he's just an apprentice who probably wouldn't know how to help her. As she walks away, Raymond notices her cranky mood isn't really aimed at him. Then the time for the speech arrives, and Sophia steps forward to greet the crowd gathered for this year's name day celebration. Everything seems fine until Raymond spots something off about her. She starts huffing, and suddenly her heart begins pounding in her chest. Without warning, she trips and collapses, causing panic among the audience. A group of healers rushes over at once, and that's when it hits Raymond that Princess Sophia is actually part of his quest. Quickly, the royals called for healers to tend to her. One of them stepped forward and used healing magic, but it didn't work at all. That sent a wave of panic through Raymond's chest, especially since even a grade A healer couldn't make the slightest difference. Doubt crept into his heart, making him question whether he was even qualified to step in. The pressure was intense, and the thought of messing up and facing the consequences made his legs weak. For a moment, he seriously considered pretending he hadn't seen anything, especially since he and Sophia never exactly got along from the start. When he's just starting to unlock his new abilities and pursue his dreams, the thought of his life ending now feels incredibly unfair. He tightens his lips, and Sophia's recent words echo in his mind about how he's changed. It wasn't a perfect apology, but Ray's heart simply won't allow him to give up after that. Raymond grits his teeth. He's not letting Sophia kick the bucket before she gives him a decent apology. Then she can go for all he cares. Without wasting another second, Dr. Ray steps forward and announces that he'll handle it, making everyone turn their heads. The palace healers tell the so-called apprentice to back off, saying this is way out of his league, but that's not stopping Raymond. He charges ahead at full speed to reach Sophia. At that very moment, his heart of steel levels up even higher for making the call to treat an emergency patient. Even though a bunch of healers try to stop him, Raymond pushes through and gets to Sophia. She glances up weakly, saying she'll definitely die if he doesn't help her. Raymond immediately checks her carotid pulse and realizes she's in cardiac arrest. The only thing left to do is jumpstart her heart so the blood can start flowing again. In no time, he clasps his hands together and places them on her chest, pumping hard to jumpstart her heart. The crowd instantly erupts in outrage at the sight of someone touching a princess like that, but Ray shouts that it's for her own good. Just as the healers move in to shove him away, the king steps into the scene and his presence shuts everyone up. That's when the king catches sight of Ray pumping Sophia's chest and urgently asks the healers if their methods can save her. When none of them answer, he explodes in anger and orders the good-for-nothing losers to let Raymond do whatever he has to. Meanwhile, the novice healer is in a panic, struggling to understand why her heart still isn't responding. Sweat trickles down his forehead as his mind races for a solution, knowing every second counts. He keeps performing the chest compressions, but a wave of anxiety crashes over him, especially with the onlookers already whispering and treating him like some kind of perpetrator. Eyes wide with horror and teeth clenched under pressure, Raymond struggles to breathe as he keeps doing chest compressions. He knows he's in deep trouble. For a second, panic takes over, but he forces himself to calm down, remembering that when CPR doesn't work, the next step is an electric shock. What he needs now is a defibrillator, but finding one in Lepentina is almost impossible. With no other choice, he quickly opens his status window and checks the skill market, then spends 80 skill points to buy the bonus skill Electricus Magic. He, wasting no time, places one hand beneath Sophia's right collarbone and the other near her left armpit, channeling the electricity straight into her body. Just as he does, a man armed with a broom shoves him aside, cutting off the flow of magic. The guy looks ready to take Raymond's head off, shouting that he's attacking the princess while she's already on the brink. Dr. Ray, shaking like a leaf, tries to explain that he's not hurting her but trying to save her using magic. Just then, the king orders the healers to examine the princess. Immediately, one of them checks her pulse and announces that her heart is beating once more. A wave of disbelief washes over them all, unable to understand how this could be possible since Raymond didn't appear to use any healing techniques. Raymond lets out a relieved sigh, a small comfort knowing his demise might not be so gruesome after all. However, the king's curiosity has reached its peak, and he urgently demands to know Raymond's methods. This certainly catches him off guard. The king is waiting for any credible explanation that can justify Raymond's methods. At first, Raymond bows down in respect, stating that Sophia's critical situation required a different method of treatment. The king is still silent, trying to make sense of it all. Right then, the king walks past him, announcing the banquet is over. Abruptly, the king turns his attention to the Shadow Prince, ordering him to remain here until he is summoned. This adds to his worries, with no clue what he wants, especially when they haven't talked in the last 5 years. Going back in time, Raymond's first encounter with his father occurred shortly after his mother passed away. He was starving and alone in a dilapidated house when the door creaked open. The king's healer examined Raymond's mother and pronounced her dead. Deep down, the king understood that without the best medical attention, this boy wouldn't survive either. Without hesitation, he scooped Raymond up in his arms and rushed straight to the palace, giving the healers a firm order to save him at all costs. News of this spread quickly among the people, with the king ensuring everyone knew the boy's life was paramount. That was the last time Raymond ever heard his father's comforting voice. He was saved, yet they never spoke a single word to each other. As an impure child, his very existence was considered wrong. Even now, the memory of the physical and emotional abuse still stings, and he often wishes his father had simply left him to die. The phantom pain of his childhood arm injury, the feeling of blood seeping, remains vivid even now. Out of nowhere, the status window suddenly pops up, flashing a notification that the quest Savior of the Banquet has been completed, rewarding him with 30 skill points. Raymond had completely forgotten about the quest reward in the middle of all the chaos. On top of that, he levels up 4 times and racks up a total of 60 skill points. As if that wasn't enough, he also earns a solid boost to his reputation and unlocks a new achievement for saving a VIP. The lad is over the moon, fully convinced that everything he just went through was totally worth it. As he hops around in pure joy, he casually refers to the king as His Majesty instead of Father, making it clear he doesn't care about that guy one bit. Raymond's smug face shines with pride, fully aware that he just pulled Princess Sophia back from the jaws of death. Raymond decides he's going to demand the biggest reward imaginable for saving her life. Afterwards, the novice healer is summoned before the king and gives his respectful greetings as his lowly servant. The king asks if Raymond made use of a different style of treatment. Thus, Raymond comes clean, revealing the method called medical sciences, an incredible ancient technique he found in some old ruins. Good thing Raymond came armed with his made-up stories, just in case anyone gets nosy and asks for details. Plus, Lepentina is covered in ancient runes, so explorers often stumble upon all sorts of mysterious knowledge. Considering its past held far more advanced technology than what exists today, most of which is still a complete mystery, Raymond's made-up explanations end up sounding surprisingly believable. Finding knowledge lost to time in Lepentina is pretty believable, especially with its long history and all those ancient runes scattered around. The king takes that into account, acknowledging that medical science just saved Princess Sophia's life, and for that, Raymond deserves a reward. Raymond's eyes light up like stars, practically drooling at the thought of a reward big enough to flip his whole life upside down. And then, the king leans in and asks what he wants, promising a reward so massive he'll never need to lift a finger for work again. Raymond stands there, lost in thought, weighing the tempting idea of asking for money. After all, he could be swimming in riches as a top-tier healer, but deep down, he knows there's something far more valuable, something only a king can grant. So, with a confident smile, he turns on his healer's charm and speaks from the heart, saying he wants nothing more than to care for his patients. He says he doesn't need gold or silver, which stuns the crowd into silence. Gasps ripple through the room as everyone praises his selflessness, amazed that someone like him would turn down wealth for the sake of others. Even the royal healer can't believe such words came from a so-called bastard. Deep inside, Raymond knows nothing beats money, but playing the noble healer earns him something even greater. With all eyes on him, he finally asks for the king's official endorsement, the royal seal of approval, so he can dedicate himself fully to helping others. The room goes quiet, stunned by the sincerity of his request. What the king gathers from Raymond's dramatic plea is that the young healer wants to make his way of treatment method officially recognized. Dr. Ray, deep down, is worried that the healer community might come after him for using unorthodox methods. They could easily label everything he did as dark magic and pressure the Tower of Healing to ban such practices altogether. To avoid that nightmare, the king's approval is the only shield he's got. Realizing the truth behind Ray's concern, and the fact that this same approach saved his daughter's life, the king has no choice but to declare medical sciences an official method of treatment. With that, Raymond finally achieves one of his goals. But he's not done yet. Looking back at the king, he politely mentions that there's just one more thing he needs. Yet again, Raymond plainly explains that he has no desire to claim gold or silver from the king. However, as a healer, he hopes to enjoy at least a little glory. He takes a deep breath and states that the king must grant his permission for him to receive the Bringor Award. The Bringor Award is something the royal family gives only for the most outstanding and meaningful deeds. The crowd in the back starts whispering among themselves, saying that the Bringor Award only comes with honor and nothing more. They watch in disbelief as this man asks only for prestige, turning down wealth after saving the princess. No one expected something like this from a bastard. But the truth is clear, Raymond is one amazing healer. Just then, the window pops up, showing that people are deeply moved by his words, and his reputation takes a solid boost. Still, Raymond laughs to himself, knowing they've got it all wrong. What they don't know is that the Bringor Award can lead to an honorary knighthood, which, while it comes with no real privileges, is the first step toward nobility. He's practically dying to get it, calling it the best reward ever. When the king asks if there's anything else he wants, Raymond humbly replies that as a healer, it would be improper to ask for anything more. This sent Raymond's reputation through the roof, and the king was finally ready to grant him the Bringor Award. After the ceremony, Raymond walked out while the king and his royal healer silently watched him leave. The healer couldn't help but remember the day he first saw little Ray, starving and barely clinging to life. Compared to that fragile boy, Raymond now looked like a completely different person, a man with conviction and purpose. Back then, he had asked the king what he planned to do as he lifted the child into his arms. The king had said he was heading to the palace so the boy could be treated by a top-grade healer. But the royal healer had warned him that word would spread fast, and people would start saying Raymond was his bastard child. The woman had left as soon as she learned who the king was, and never sent a single letter to the palace until the day she died. The healer had argued to let the boy die instead of risking disgrace to the throne and to the king's dignity. But the king had stayed firm in his decision and brought Raymond to the palace anyway. However, Garmin knew the only way to protect his reputation while possibly saving the bastard was by showing absolutely no emotion toward the boy, no matter what happened. The king's judgment worked out perfectly, and no one criticized him for it, mainly because they had a better target to focus on, like Raymond. The healer wished Raymond had just been some countryside noble's bastard, so things wouldn't have gotten this complicated. Still, he silently thanked the heavens for the blessing of medical sciences that gave him the chance to turn his life around. He figures that his chosen method might at least deliver results equal to a mid-grade healer, which would be enough for him to make a decent living. For a bastard like Ray, even that is a big win. The king stays silent, offering no comments. Meanwhile, Raymond returns to the Belland Infirmary, where everyone welcomes him warmly, stunned to hear he received the Bringor Award. People around here aren't even using his name anymore. they're calling him Almond instead. Some of them are clearly envious and act a little distant, especially with their long history of mistreating him. Nobody, not even Lance, ever imagined Raymond could pull something like this off and make it big. Even Lance is walking on eggshells around him these days. Just then, Raymond demands to know if Lance still has a problem with giving the certification exam. Lance flinches the moment he sees Ray, awkwardly calling him sir without much reason behind it. Dr. Ray, of course, doesn't let it slide. He keeps pushing Lance to say his name again and again, teasing him the whole time like he's just messing around. Lance finally snaps and says it out loud, this time with clear disgust in his voice. Raymond just grins and asks if that's how royal etiquette works these days. Lance, shaken like a leaf, straight up apologizes. Raymond thanks him for using the proper tone and bullies Master Lance into bowing before him with respect. Raymond feels like he is on top of the world, thinking it is finally time to teach them a lesson for how they treated him all this time. But even with his new status as a noble, he knows he does not hold real power or privileges yet, and a rushed road to revenge might backfire. So instead, Raymond politely asks the healer if he can handle this patient, planning to quietly steal all their patients and make the most of the moment. Everyone expected Raymond to turn into some arrogant bum after getting the Bringor award, but instead, he became even kinder and worked harder than before. Among the crowd, Hansen watches him warmly, seeing how much he has grown. In the meantime, Raymond's experience points keep rising, and his friendly way of treating patients is boosting his reputation fast. He is now at level 15 as a novice resident, with 25 out of 50 experience points. Seeing that, he can't believe he only needs to reach level 40 to upgrade his occupation level. Just then, a cart crashes through the doors, carrying an emergency patient with a stabbing wound to the abdomen. A wave of anxiety rushes through Raymond's mind. He figures a grade B healer could handle this case, though it might take some time. He assumes Lance will be tied up with it for days, but instead, Raymond watches in disbelief as Lance casually glances at the patient like he has no responsibilities left in the world, acting like this is no big deal, even though it is far from an easy case to treat. A man knocks on the door with a bleeding stab wound in his abdomen, muttering to himself and wondering who snitched. A few days earlier, at Count August's manor, word had already spread that the Shadow Prince had made quite a scene at the banquet, so much so that he received the prestigious Bringor Award. The Count thinks that while the boy may have exceptional abilities, the title of prince is wasted on him. At the same time, he brings up the three princes of the Kingdom of Houston, where the battle for the throne is already brutal with the current contenders. His servant asks if House August isn't supporting the third prince. The second prince is named Karen, and the third is Remerton. Out of all three, the Count believes Chiron is the strongest candidate, which is exactly why he assigned such an important mission to Clyan. He orders Clyan to deliver this intel to the third prince right away. Clyan is also told to wear a disguise to throw off the spies sent by the second prince, then head straight to the rendezvous point without being seen. As it turns out, the second prince had sent an assassin to finish the job by stabbing Clyan. Somehow Clyan managed to escape, though he lost a lot of blood in the process. Luckily for him, Belland Infirmary was nearby, and he believed that the Grade A healer, Director Bucks, might be able to save him. Staggering from blood loss, Clyan made his way there, convinced that his fate wasn't to just bleed out and die. But when he arrived, Master Lance didn't look too eager to help. He questioned why a beggar was even inside, saying they didn't treat the penniless, especially not when the wound would take him days to heal. Without a second thought, Lance ordered his lackeys to drag Clyan off to the White Infirmary, where poor peasants were usually treated. Clyan tried to speak up about his identity and residence, but his lungs failed him, and all he could do was cough up blood. Just as Lance was about to throw in a snide comment, Raymond cut in, pointing out that the White Infirmary had no healers capable of treating such an injury. If they dumped him there, he'd be as good as dead. Lance, grinning like a devil, turned to Sir the Great Healer and asked if he would do the honors instead. After all, Raymond was the celebrated savior of Princess Sophia, so surely something like this would be a piece of cake for him. The crowd starts whispering, saying how the Shadow Prince has been stealing their patients lately, so why can't he just take this one too? Some even snicker that medical sciences probably only works on easy patients anyway. Raymond feels a rush of anxiety. He knows a stab wound isn't something a novice resident like him is supposed to handle. He's not ready for something this serious. Lance takes the chance to mock him, telling him to go ahead and prove to everyone why he's known as the friendly healer by either taking the patient to the White Infirmary or tossing him out. Raymond fires back, asking if Lance has no shame, especially being a master healer who's more than qualified to treat this man. But Lance doesn't budge. He makes it clear he's not about to waste his skills for free on a beggar who can't pay. That comment lights a fire in Ray, his anger bubbling as the tension in the room rises. Come to think of it, Ray's goal is pretty clear. He wants to be the land's greatest healer and live a life full of riches. That kind of mindset leans more on the materialistic side, and stepping up here would honestly look like a foolish move. The smart choice would be to just stay out of it. But Raymond holds on tightly to his morals, believing no real healer should ever walk away from someone who's dying. So he decides to take responsibility and handle this patient himself. That spark of courage inside him awakens his heart of steel. Lance, of course, keeps running his mouth, warning that if Raymond messes up, all his praise for saving the princess will be dismissed as pure luck. Worse, Lance paints this dramatic picture where Raymond is accused of using dark magic and is found guilty of deceiving the royal family. He warns that the consequences could decide Raymond's entire future, then walks off, leaving him alone with Clion. While a storm of emotions brews inside Ray, Hansen steps up and gently asks if he needs a hand, reminding him that it's better not to work alone like last time. Just as Hansen seems unsure, Raymond grabs his hand and thanks him, appreciating how he had his back before too. Hansen's words, that he's done this once already, give Raymond the boost he needs, making him feel like this might actually be a walk in the park. Without wasting time, he asks for sterile boiled water, a knife, and a needle heated in flames, making sure the surgical area gets cleaned right away. Afterwards, both Lance and Hansen suit up with their masks on. Raymond quickly realizes that a blood transfusion is necessary, but since Lepentina doesn't have the proper tools for that, he decides to make do by keeping the patient's vitals stable with a steady flow of saline solution. He activates Surgeon's Finesse, a skill that boosts his attunement, making his hands sharper and more precise for surgery. With that, he makes the incision, confident that his attunement has doubled since the last time, which makes everything feel a bit smoother. As the blood starts to spill out, Hansen catches a glimpse and flinches. He's never seen so much blood oozing at once. He nervously asks if this much blood loss isn't dangerous, while Raymond struggles to locate the source of the wound through the thick, dark pool of blood. Hansen looks down in shock, like he's never witnessed anything this intense before, and Dr. Ray's hands start to tremble with fear. Hansen calls out, clearly wanting to help, and that small gesture pulls Raymond back to focus. He nods and tells Hansen to wipe the area clean using a sterile cloth. Once the blood is cleared, Raymond finally spots the issue. The knife has punctured the mesentery, and now several blood vessels are leaking. Stitching one vessel is easy, but this is a mess with way too many. The best way to deal with this is to cauterize all the vessels at once, but he doesn't have the right tool, which is a cautery pen. Raymond scratches his head, desperate for an alternative, when suddenly a thought hits him. Magic. He, without wasting time, unlocks aqua magic for 80 skill points, even though fire isn't part of that branch. But he plans to manipulate water pressure and steam to seal the wounds. Still, the fear kicks in. What if he ends up causing serious burns? Or what if he loses control of the range? The risk is real, but he knows this might be his only shot. Just then, a window pops up, notifying Raymond that his high intelligence boosts his control over the magic skill. With that, his confidence returns, and he feels reassured that leveling up was the right call. He summons the weakest fire, catching Hansen off guard since he had no idea Raymond could use magic. Using the flames, Raymond stops the blood loss and ties off the biggest nicked blood vessel. Hansen hands him the cord, and Dr. Ray stitches everything up, smiling as he announces the bleeding has completely stopped. When Hansen asks how he knows magic, Raymond shrugs it off, saying he learned it as a hobby, and throws in a made-up story about discovering it in some ancient ruins that collapsed afterward. Hansen doesn't press further. Still, he figures it out that no one shares the secrets that give them an edge. They get back to the operation, where the soon-to-be great healer explains that the only thing left is to repair the mesentery. If the knife had gone any deeper, things could have gotten real bad. Hansen, who once thought Raymond was just a talentless hack, now sees him in a new light, especially after saving the princess and earning a Bringor award. One thing is clear, medical science can save people even when healing magic falls short. Questions start bubbling up in Hansen's head, like what kind of technique this is and whether he could learn it too. He wonders if Raymond would teach him if he asked. After finishing Clion's case, a window pops up awarding Raymond bonus experience points for treating a patient on the brink of death beyond his grade. When Hansen asks if they're done, Raymond flashes a huge smile and thanks him, clearly thrilled to have saved another life. He even says he couldn't have done it without Hansen's help. Afterwards, Clion wakes up and asks if he's in the White Infirmary. The great healer and Hansen are by his bedside, and Dr. Ray explains that his condition was too risky to delay treatment, so they operated on him at Belland. Clion recalls how Lance had planned to dump him out, but before he can say more, Count August rushes in, frantic for his son. Hansen is stunned to learn Clion is actually the son of the great noble of the South. He figures Belland was the right place for treatment, expensive but trustworthy. Wanting to reward the one who saved his son, Count August asks if it was Bucks or Lance. Hansen proudly does the honors and says it was Sir Raymond. Clion quickly realizes it's the Shadow Prince, the same man who saved the princess. Hansen adds that while Lance was ready to toss Clion into the White Infirmary, it was Raymond who stepped up and took the risk. That's all Count August needs to hear before demanding to know why his son was nearly thrown out. Hansen explains that Clion's disguise made him look like a penniless beggar, which is more than enough to enrage the noble. In the meantime, Lance's lackeys show up late with the news, only after everything is already done. He's stunned to hear that such a high-ranking noble is visiting Belland and quickly decides he has to meet him as the master healer. Still, he's clueless about why someone of that status would come here when no nobles are admitted. When Lance finally shows up, he gives a long-winded, overly respectful introduction, trying to impress. But the Count stares him down with pure disgust and bluntly asks if he's the one who left his son to rot. Lance stammers, asking how he could ever let a noble's son die, saying this must all be a big misunderstanding. But the rage in August and Cleon's eyes says otherwise as they glare at him furiously. The heavy tension sends chills down Lance's spine, and that's when it hits him. The patient he tried to kick out was actually Count August's son. Desperate to cover it up, he claims he had assigned his best man, Sir Ray, to treat such an important patient, even bringing up how the Shadow Prince saved the princess too. But everyone sees right through his panicked attempt to sugarcoat things. That's when Cleon snaps and says he remembers everything clearly. He repeats Lance's exact words, that this infirmary wouldn't treat penniless beggars, and even mocks how Lance asked him how a bum like him managed to walk in here. That's more than enough to make Count August furious, knowing his own son was denied treatment and insulted on top of that, and now Lance has the nerve to lie in front of him. With no other way out, Lance falls to his knees, begging for forgiveness and claiming he just made a huge mistake not realizing who Cleon really was. August gets furious at Lance's excuse of it being just an error. He snaps back, asking if that means if his son hadn't been a noble, it would have been perfectly fine to let him die. It makes Count August sick to see someone like Lance holding the respected title of Master Healer, especially when this is how he treats people's lives. With no hesitation, August orders an arrest warrant to be issued in Lance's name, charging him with contempt of a noble in a court of law. Lance drops to his knees begging for mercy, but August fires right back, asking if he ever showed mercy to the poor. Without a shred of doubt, August swears that Lance will never work as a healer again anywhere in the entire United Empire of the Cross. At that moment, August's guards drag the disgraced man out, and both Hansen and Dr. Ray feel he got exactly what he deserved. After that, Count August bows deeply to the Shadow Prince in gratitude, which completely catches him off guard. Raymond humbly asks him to raise his head, saying he only did his duty as a healer, but August insists he owes Raymond a great debt for saving the heir to House August. That definitely sounds like reward time, and for a brief second, Dr. Ray imagines himself being showered in gold. However, Count August is already aware of what Raymond said at the name day celebration, and believes that, as a healer of true integrity, wealth means nothing to him, even if offered by the king. That leaves the Count unsure of how to compensate him. While Raymond throws a tantrum inside of needing money, Count August decides to make Raymond a friend of House August. When Raymond asks why, August explains that while the Bringor Award holds no real power, as their friend, the power can come from their house instead. It suddenly clicks for Ray. With noble backing, he won't be dismissed as a nobody, and he won't risk upsetting House August. Raymond feels honored but humbly insists that he still has to charge for the treatment, as it's the infirmary's policy. So, he goes ahead and issues the bill, confident that this time, they'll actually get paid. August and Cleon both feel incredibly awkward at that moment. Cleon eventually breaks the silence, asking why Raymond offered his services for free, especially since his death could have advanced the second prince's conspiracy. By doing so, the third prince and House August would have been in serious danger, making any reward seem insignificant. Cleon then goes on to explain how the battle for the throne is only going to get tougher, and wonders if Raymond is truly prepared to navigate this dangerous storm. Although Raymond never had the social standing to qualify for the throne, being born a bastard, August can't ignore what's happened lately. He believes even a sharp needle can pierce through a sealed pocket, and today's Raymond is exactly that. Someone with unbelievable power who stands out, bound to provoke the princes even more. His path to success will draw all sorts of attention, especially enemies trying to take him down. He won't be easy to ignore or silence. August only wants to see Raymond spread his wings as a healer, and that's why he wishes for House August to shield him, even if just for a while. Meanwhile, word reaches Chiron, the second prince, that Dr. Ray saved Cleon's life. Upon hearing it, the assassin who failed begs for forgiveness, explaining how Belland never accepts poor patients, which meant Cleon had zero chance of survival. There was no way to expect he'd live, especially since no one knew Raymond had healing abilities. Karen can't believe that after everything he did for Ray, he still ended up ruining his plan. After hearing all that, Karen decides they'll need to keep a close eye on Ray. Turns out their old mutt has learned a few new tricks. Meanwhile, the novice healer is bursting with joy, thrilled that the day he's been waiting for these past 5 years has finally arrived. The healer certification exam, which means his time as an apprentice is officially over. Rumors spread like wildfire that Lance had been kicked out of Belland Infirmary all because of Ray. First, he saved the princess. Then he treated the heir of House August. Yet some still chalk it up to dumb luck. But this blonde kid thinks it's a little too convenient to call it luck 3 times in a row. He can't help but wonder if medical science, even if it's not magic healing, actually has some real power behind it. The blondie gets some serious glares while others dismiss it as pseudo-healing, just barbaric cutting. He points out the king declared it official, but they insist the king has softened his heart for his son, favoring royal blood. They're also amused to learn it's Raymond's exam today, believing the results will tell the real story. Now they're all placing bets on Ray, while Hansen watches the whole affair brewing. Afterwards, Raymond takes his seat, overjoyed that the day has finally arrived after 5 years. The healer certification exam. The backbenchers immediately spot the Shadow Prince, a grade F- who saved the princess, and grudgingly allow him to take the test, secretly hoping he'll fail and humiliate the king. Their gossip sends a wave of anxiety through Raymond as he wonders what will happen if he flunks. No second chances, just being branded good-for-nothing trash again. Hansen, sensing his panic, asks what he plans to do if he passes. After 5 years of apprenticeship, surely he has something he wants to pursue once he's certified, right? Raymond thinks for a moment of feasting on meat, beef, steak, all kinds of rich food, and almost drools at the thought. But that's not what Hansen is looking to hear. So Raymond reflects on his apprenticeship days, remembering that all he ever wanted was to help patients. Without a second thought, he tells Hansen he'll proudly treat patients and dedicate his life to their care. Honestly, Raymond likes helping people and seeing those how he helped. He wishes to feel the feeling more. This activates Heart of Steel with HSI generous thoughts, and Dr. Ray is calmed down, finally breaking through how Heart of Steel works. Just thinking about HSI work will switch it on. Hansen really wishes Ray get through this exam, while that blondie kid watches those two chatting, seeing how the Shadow Prince is so confident today. Right then, Ray gets called in before the examiners, confirming his grade to be F-. Even then they demand to see his healing abilities, and Dr. Ray puts on a show of his magic, but the examiners don't look impressed. They all crack up, seeing that puny leaking magic isn't healing at all. One of them dared to ask why he had come here today, when he didn't qualify for the exam. Raymond just says he is aware of his shortcomings, but the examiner cut him short, asking him to leave them and quit wasting time. As it turns out, Raymond came prepared for just the thing. He purchased a skill, called Eloquence from the skill market, and he activated it, allowing users to speak more effectively. There's a changed tone to the Shadow Prince's voice, declaring to ask if the Tower of Healing objects to the king's approval, proclaiming their defiance to the king. He claims to be aware of his shortcomings in healing, but he insists on using the medical sciences, which is approved by King Odin de Houston. Without a shadow doubt, the king has acknowledged this as an official method. The examiners of the Tower of Healing exchange uneasy glances when Raymond calmly asks if the Houston chapter of the tower intends to ignore the king's decree. The red-haired examiner is stunned by how sharply Raymond flipped the argument, pointing out that all healers in the Empire of the Cross operate under the authority of the Tower of Healing. That means if the tower refuses to recognize anything outside their traditional methods, they're also going against the king himself. Raymond then presses the point. If the Houston chapter truly respects the king of their land, then he deserves the chance to prove whether his methods work or not. One of the judges sees the logic in Raymond's words, unwilling to defy royal authority, and just like that, the novice healer is granted a patient to treat, his official shot at becoming a certified healer. He's thrilled for a second, but that joy disappears instantly when he sees the condition of the patient he's been assigned. At the Tower of Healing, prior to the exam, the red-headed examiner decides to assign Sir Raymond this particular patient for his exam. The old woman admits that even Trass, a grade B healer, couldn't treat this patient. Some think it's not suitable for the exam, but the redhead reminds them of Ray's expertise in medical sciences. This is the man who electrocuted the princess to save her, and once sliced open a man's body and sewed it back together. The only worry now is whether they're really allowing a barbarian to become a healer. It seems the redhead is scheming to make Raymond fail. One of the other examiners worries that Count August won't be pleased if the word gets out. But the redhead calmly responds that the exam is his domain alone, and Count August has no say in the Tower of Healing's affairs. He can't stomach the idea that a bastard would dare apply for the exam. Even his cousin, the mother of the fourth prince, agrees that the boy must not pass. Another judge quickly realizes that Count Linson has already decided to fail Raymond. Afterward, Ray gets assigned his patient, and honestly, it feels like he hit the jackpot when he sees it's a bedsores case. Count Linson can't understand why Raymond looks so relieved and happy, especially when even a grade B healer couldn't handle pressure ulcers. Raymond politely thanks the examiners before getting to work. Linson starts wondering if Raymond's gone mad from stress or just doesn't realize what's coming. Later, Raymond talks with the patient's son, explaining that he needs to examine the patient first to figure out the prognosis. As soon as he enters, Raymond smells something acrid. The son apologizes for the stink, but Ray puts him at ease, saying he didn't exactly expect roses. Raymond immediately guesses that the father is in pain, which surprises the son since most healers were too disgusted to even look. Then Raymond takes the patient's history and learns he's been bedridden for quite a while. During the examination, he checks the bed sores and sees they're in bad shape, but at least they haven't reached the bone, so treatment should be manageable. When the son asks about it, the soon-to-be great healer explains that only the rotten skin needs to be removed, allowing new skin to grow. The son says other healers tried the same, but the sores always came back. That catches Raymond off guard, making him realize the real issue. Pressure ulcers come from bad posture when someone's stuck in bed for too long without proper care. However, Raymond thinks that might not be the real problem here and decides to go ahead with removing the dead skin anyway, carving out the infected area with care. He tells the son that the treatment will involve surgery and that he should have a little faith in him. After that, Ray gets into his gear and sees his attunement reaching 18, which is pretty high for a novice resident. Scraping out the dead tissue is going to be as easy as pie. He calmly removes the rotting flesh and clears away the discharge while the patient's son stresses out in the back, watching Raymond casually knife his father like it's just another day at work. In the end, Raymond sanitizes the wound using herbs packed with natural antibiotics. When asked, Raymond responds that the first stage of treatment is complete, and for the next one, he'll need the son's help. He gives clear and simple instructions. His father's position must be changed regularly throughout the day by rolling him over in bed. The son looks completely lost, so Raymond breaks it down for him, explaining that bed sores can be prevented by changing posture frequently. On top of that, he says the infection still needs some attention, so he'll be sticking around until his father's condition improves. As they keep up with the routine, Raymond eventually declares the old man out of danger and safe from falling back into the same cycle of bed sores. Right then and there, both the old man and his son thanked Raymond from the bottom of their hearts, especially since even a grade B healer couldn't do anything about it. Apparently, they didn't have the means to afford a higher-ranking healer and felt truly grateful for Raymond's kindness. After advising them to keep changing the patient's posture regularly to prevent more bed sores, Raymond wraps up his job. Word soon reaches Count Linson, who's having a hard time believing it. The nerdy judge reminds him that he saw it with his own eyes, and the new skin formation is real. Now, they don't really have any excuse to fail Raymond. Linson starts stressing about what he's supposed to say to the fourth prince, especially since there's no proper way to rank someone with a grade F- who just healed a patient needing a grade B healer. The nerd suggests giving Raymond a grade B+ or even a grade A, but Linson immediately shuts that down. There's no way he's letting that happen. Count Linson is freaking out because his plans have gone completely down the drain. However, he adds that while Raymond's ancient technique did manage to cure a difficult patient, his healing is still considered grade F-. No matter the extra credit, anything higher than a grade D is completely off the table. But the others think it's just plain wrong to rank him as a grade D when he treated something closer to a grade B+ condition. Count August definitely won't like the sound of it, but Linson reminds them that August has no right to interfere in the tower's affairs. Then the nerdy judge points out that both the princess and the king might step in if they hear Raymond got slapped with a grade D after healing the princess's grade A condition. Linson clenches his hands, battling a mental struggle to decide how to appease the fourth prince's mother while not upsetting the king. He initiates the request to contact the capital, aka the head tower, and fill them in. As it happens to be, the United Empire of the Cross is made up of 10 nations, while the emperor resides in the capital, which is the head tower of healing. Even the king of Houston can't go against a decision made by the head tower. Everyone agrees, and they have sent their query to the head tower. Soon enough, the head tower's response comes back, and Linson rips open the letters. Just one look is enough to make Linson's eyes widen in shock. The head tower has graded Raymond as grade U. It's the first time this mysterious grade has ever been used. They're thinking U for undetermined, because even the head tower had a tough time reaching a verdict on this case, just like them. Well, Linson is pretty sure that neither the fourth prince's mother nor the king will have any issue with the outcome. Even if Raymond is officially recognized as a healer, the medical sciences still won't be acknowledged as a proper form of treatment. So in the end, it all works in Linson's favor. And that's how the world's very first grade U came into existence, starting with Ray. Among his peers, Raymond still got picked on and mocked for having a useless grade, with people saying he got his skills from witchcraft. They thought it suited a bastard like him, and the letter U became his symbol from then on. But as time passed, people started to see grade U in a different light, calling it untouchable or even ultimate. Something far beyond even grade SSS, even surpassing the mythical grade X, turning grade U into the most powerful rank of all. That part of the story takes place way later, but for now, in the present moment, Raymond lets out tears of joy for finally passing the certification exam and becoming an official healer. He bids farewell to the days of apprenticeship, plain veggie soup and stale bread, because now he can finally walk the path of steak. With a fiery grin, he lights a match and declares it's time to ditch this hellhole called Belland Infirmary, planning to burn the whole place to the ground. But just as he's about to leave, Hansen catches up with him. Healer Ray nearly jumps out of his skin, scrambling to say it's cold out here, so he's just trying to warm things up a little. Hansen calmly reminds him it's summer. Afterward, Hansen reveals he received a grade C. So, Raymond asks about his plans as a certified healer. Hansen awkwardly admits he's not entirely sure, even though he received a message from Maple Infirmary. This news thrills Ray, knowing it's one of the 3 largest infirmaries in the capital, practically monopolizing healthcare for the common folk in the area. Raymond offers his sincere congratulations, but Hansen immediately asks about Raymond's own plans. Raymond brushes off the question, expressing his desire to treat Hansen to a good meal instead. Hansen wonders where an apprentice like Raymond would get the money. Raymond confesses he secured a loan from Healer Lending after getting certified. Hansen is horrified, demanding to know what possessed Raymond to pull such a stunt. Raymond replies with a playful smirk, saying he has his reasons, but food comes first right now. Later, these 2 newly certified healers hit the booze, getting drunk all the way through the night. Seeing the Shadow Prince in such high spirits, Hansen figures it's the perfect time to ask something that's been on his mind. He takes a deep breath and goes all in, asking where Raymond found the ancient relic related to the medical sciences, even if it's broken or incomplete. Hansen says he just wants to poke around, maybe learn something from it, and promises to keep it top secret. But Ray, completely wasted, burst that bubble fast by blurting out that there is no relic. He just randomly got blessed with the knowledge of medical sciences one day while cleaning. That nonsense sets Hansen off, thinking it's a total joke. He doesn't buy it for a second. Still, Hansen says he gets it. After all the crap Raymond's gone through, maybe he just doesn't want to talk about it. But even so, he still hopes Raymond would trust him enough to share it. Raymond insists it's not a lie, but Hansen, clearly hurt, storms off without another word. Days later, at Maple Infirmary, Hansen learns that Lore Infirmary reached out to Sir Raymond. That's the top infirmary in the capital, second only to the exclusive Helian Infirmary for nobles. He can't help but notice how the Shadow Prince is already surpassing him. But then, he overhears some jerks gossiping about how the Shadow Prince actually rejected their offer. That's something Hansen never saw coming. Hansen completely loses it, barging into the Shadow Prince's dorm and shaking him awake from a peaceful sleep, demanding to know why he turned down Lore's offer. He tries to drill it into the Shadow Prince's head that Lore is way better than Maple Infirmary in every way. But Ray, still groggy, drops the real reason. He's decided to start his own infirmary. That throws Hansen off completely. Raymond reminds him that he already took a loan from Healer Lending just for this. Hansen gets even more fired up, asking how a rookie like him thinks he can pull off something this big. He's pissed, thinking Raymond's treating it like some child's play. He lays it out straight. Raymond needs real work experience before jumping into something so huge. But Ray, stubborn as ever, says this has been his dream ever since he became a healer. Sure, he's just a novice resident who still needs hands-on experience to level up, but that's the whole point. He turned down the prestigious Lore Infirmary because he knew he'd be stuck watching high-ranking healers treat patients instead of actually getting in the game himself. Especially because the Tower of Healing doesn't take his methods seriously, it only pushes Raymond harder to open his own place. He wants to prove that medical sciences can stand on their own. Hansen, still trying to talk some sense into him, brings up the fact that the whole region's already covered by the big infirmaries, leaving Raymond no place to set his business. Right then, Raymond straight up points at the map, showing a poor area that caught his eye. Hansen argues he won't earn a single dime there, no matter how hard he works. But that doesn't bother Raymond one bit. He's not chasing money. He just wants a steady stream of patients so he can keep learning and improving, aiming to become the top healer in the whole land. The news hits Hansen pretty hard, but he gets it. Meanwhile, the third prince, Remerton, hears about Raymond turning down Lore's offer and starting his own clinic. He had totally expected Raymond to take the offer, so hearing he said no caught him off guard. Turns out, Remerton was the one who arranged the offer in the first place, as a way to thank the Shadow Prince for saving Count August's heir. Remerton had even spoken with August and praised the Shadow Prince for protecting such valuable intel. His plan was to train Raymond under Lore and later bring him over to his own side. If only the guy hadn't been such a dummy and refused. When his lackey asks if he actually believes in medical sciences, Remerton says he doesn't really care. If it saves lives, that's all that matters. Now that Dr. Ray has thrown away the golden opportunity handed to him, Remerton figures they're clearly walking different paths. He still sees Ray as a fool. Then he hears that Dr. Ray plans to set up his infirmary in the Vey Quarter. Remerton can't believe it. That idiot actually picked a rundown, dirt-poor, lawless area way out in the northwest outskirts of the capital. It's a place no noble in their right mind would ever bother with. A century ago, the Houston Kingdom got beaten by the Droton Kingdom and lost a big chunk of southern land. Houston folks who lost their homes were moved to the edge of the capital and were relocated to the outskirts of the capital, leading to the creation of the massive slums in Vey. The entire kingdom had suffered heavily from the war, so they weren't able to provide much help to the people living in those slums. So, 100 years later, the Vey Quarter has just become this massive problem that everyone in Houston pretends doesn't exist. Even so, King Houston once declared that anyone who could ease the unrest in Vey would be granted any reward they wished. Despite that, all three princes, Chiron, Remerton, and Settle, as well as the proud swordsman and fourth prince, all tried and failed to bring peace to Vey. In the end, Remerton concluded that this place isn't something that can be fixed. It needs to be burned to the ground, because there's no other way. Even though everyone else ignored the Vey slums, their dad was fixated on those people, always seeing them as Houston citizens. Now that everyone else has failed to address the issue, Remerton sees the Shadow Prince taking his turn. Meanwhile, in Belland Infirmary, everyone's judging the bastard's choice for picking Vey of all the places. They think bastards like him will fit in society. On the day of Ray's departure, his former patients tried to stop him from stepping into the dangerous territory, but this didn't shake Raymond's belief. He ensures to be successful enough so they can visit him one day. Right in the middle, Hansen informs Raymond of having a letter in his name, which weirds him out. Dr. Ray, after bidding farewell to everyone, asks Hansen to come along. Turns out, Princess Sophia wrote the letter, trying to convince Raymond to reconsider going to Vey, saying he'll regret it if he does. Without a shred of doubt, he crumbles the paper into a ball like it's trash, while Hansen tries talking some sense into him. He lets Ray know the risks and dangers of that area, which he isn't familiar with. Raymond bursts his bubble by revealing he lived there, so he knows it well. That knocks the wind out of Hansen, who suddenly remembers how the Shadow Prince once lived in that poor neighborhood. He tells Raymond how his own mother died there before he was moved to the palace, but Raymond simply says that people there live like anyone else. And honestly, he finds it way better than both the palace and Belland Infirmary. That's when he finally shares with Hansen his childhood dream of opening an infirmary in that very place. So he assures Hansen that he'll be just fine. Without hesitation, Hansen insists on coming with him, which catches Raymond off guard, especially since Hansen is supposed to be heading to Maple Infirmary. In a moment of frustration, Hansen spills the beans that Maple reeks of even greedier misers than the ones at Belland. Dr. Ray, a bit embarrassed, admits that he does care about money too, but deep down, all he really wants is tons of experience. Hansen knows the truth. Raymond always puts his patients first, which is exactly why he wants to work with him. On the inside, Raymond thinks of himself as a money-hungry, experience-hungry little pug. Then out of nowhere, Hansen drops the real reason. He wants to observe medical sciences just to learn something from it. That makes Raymond super nervous because how can a novice resident like him teach anyone? Hansen starts thinking maybe Raymond doesn't want to teach him, but suddenly, a glowing window pops up showing Hansen's request to learn, triggering something called FOST status mode, and asks Raymond if he's willing or not. This foster student mode is completely new to the Shadow Prince, and he has no idea what it's all about at first. Turns out it's actually a gateway for him to earn skill points in a whole new way. The more medically skilled Hansen becomes, the more Raymond benefits. Whenever the student heals a patient, a portion of their experience points gets shared with Ray. That blows his mind, making him feel like he's just struck gold. He remembers how he needs 200 experience points just to level up after level 20, so this is a total game changer. Still, when it comes to teaching, there are some restrictions he has to deal with. Meanwhile, Hansen's heart is pounding like crazy, hoping the Shadow Prince says yes. Suddenly, Raymond agrees to teach him, but only if he, himself, studies harder. Hansen quickly bows to his new master, grateful for being given the chance, while Raymond achieves the achievement of having his first ever student. That instantly earns him 5 skill points and a new skill called Slapdash Schooling, ranked level D, which matches a residence level. Raymond knows this might bring trouble, but he also knows no one becomes a master overnight. With Hansen gaining experience, Raymond believes he'll reach his own goals even faster. And just like that, the medical school that would one day become legendary welcomed its very first student. As they're about to head to the Vey quarter, Hansen shows up in what looks like full combat gear. Raymond jokes that it looks like he's off to war instead of opening a clinic, but Hansen shoots back, totally serious about how dangerous the place really is. He even glares at this soon-to-be great healer, accusing him of hiding chainmail under his clothes too. Raymond hesitates, then admits it, says he treats his body like a temple, and there's no harm in being prepared. Hansen asks if he's not even a little scared. Raymond definitely feels the fear now that they're actually going, but he keeps a straight face in front of Hansen. Then Hansen hands him a club, telling him to protect that temple body of his. As soon as Raymond grabs it, the self-defense skill learning phase kicks in, but his stats are too low to unlock any actual self-defense skills yet. Turns out, this system is designed for doctors working in dangerous zones. Raymond's mind is blown by his sudden good luck with magic and self-defense, and for a moment, he feels like he's turning into some kind of legendary mage warrior. Meanwhile, Hansen notices Raymond completely frozen in place and calls him back to reality. Snapped out of it, Raymond pulls himself together, fully pumped to head into the Vey quarter with his new confidence. Still, that nervous tension refuses to let go of either of them. As they finally step into the Vey quarter, both of them try to convince themselves that everything's going to be fine. Even though Raymond feels like he's about to pee his pants, he tries to keep cool. Then, he points out the shady folks glaring at them from the shadows, their eyes full of disgust. Raymond tries to lighten the mood by saying those are the same people he once struggled alongside. Their nasty glares make both of them even more anxious, sending chills down their spines. Raymond suggests they head straight to the infirmary and avoid wandering around this eerie place. When they finally arrive, they're stunned to find it completely empty, not a single soul in need of treatment. Raymond tries to brush it off, saying it's just the first day, so they can't expect much. But even hours later, no one shows up. The same thing happens the next day, and the day after that. It's starting to feel boring and kind of depressing for Raymond. Hansen tries to reassure him, saying it's probably because the people in Vey haven't heard about their clinic yet. Right then, Raymond shouts that it's impossible since he made sure to draw the symbol of medicine nicely and big on the door. And when it comes to news spreading in the slums, he knows word travels fast. Just as he's ranting, out of nowhere, someone throws a stone into their clinic, shattering the window. That catches them off guard. Hansen quickly darts outside and shouts for Raymond to come look. He points at the message scribbled on the infirmary wall, which says this isn't a play area for kids like them, and they'd better get lost or die. Later, Hansen urgently tells Raymond they need to leave immediately because it's not safe for them there. Raymond understands the severity of the situation and agrees they'd be in serious trouble if they stayed. Even then, Raymond doesn't feel like giving up just yet, especially with the massive debt hanging over his head. While trying to keep his cool, he's fighting an intense war inside, knowing that quitting now would mean throwing everything away. More importantly, he's already spent all his money buying and renovating this place, and if it fails, it's all going straight down the drain. Even if he tries selling it again, there's no way he'd make a decent profit. And on top of all that, there's still a huge interest to pay. Just the thought of it sends chills down his spine. Plus, Raymond knows the healer lending group is dead serious about their money, so he's stuck in a tight corner. He has to make this infirmary succeed and pay them back, or things are going to get really bad for him. Just then, a new quest pops up in front of him, to change the hearts of the slums and soften them, since the people of Vey have long been on the receiving end of neglect and cruelty from the rest of the kingdom. The quest calls for a half-doctor, someone who not only heals but also connects, earns trust, and builds bonds with the people. If he pulls it off, the reward is massive. Bonus level 30 skill points. His debt's crushing, his clinic's falling apart, but this new quest might be the lifeline he needs. No doubt about it. One thing's clear, that there's no room for failure, especially with dangerous threats looming. He decides to stay, but Ray leaves the choice up to Hansen, letting him decide whether to stay or go. Hansen's eyes light up like he's found a new sense of respect, noticing how much Raymond cares about the poor. But Raymond's mind is locked on one thing: paying off that crushing debt. Because of that noble choice, Hansen insists on staying, thinking that leaving would be a shameful move on his part. Raymond realizes this guy's got the wrong idea, but instead of correcting him, he turns his focus to what really matters, which is the need to do something about the situation before it spirals out of control. And right then, Ray gets an idea. At the slum plaza in the city, when Hansen starts shaking like a leaf at the sight of such a big crowd, Raymond steps in to calm him down, reminding the guy about the chainmail hidden under his healer outfit. Raymond actually prefers a place full of people over an empty street. Between the two of them, the novice healer is the icebreaker, trying to spark up a conversation with the two men standing in front of them. He reminds them it's him, Ray, and casually asks how they've been. The men are shocked to see the little boy who once went off to the palace standing there now. In the hope of being recognized, Raymond decides to play the nostalgia card. Like a burst of light, he talks about how nice it feels to be back in Vey after so long, like coming home. He even throws in a childhood story about getting beaten like a stray dog by Mr. Bob and Mr. Tom's, hoping it'll hit the right emotional chord. But the cold look in their eyes says a lot, and inside, Raymond starts to panic, wondering if any of this is actually working. Then, the men snap, demanding to know when the heck he came back, especially after becoming royalty and earning that fancy title. They make it crystal clear that Vey isn't some place for royal entertainment. It stings, knowing these people don't even see him as one of their own anymore, like he's just another noble in their eyes. Well, he can't really blame them. It's been 15 years since he last stepped foot here. If nostalgia isn't doing the trick, then he has to face them head on. Right then, Heart of Steel activates, triggered by his genuine efforts for the people of the Vey slums. He responds to the men directly, shutting down their assumptions and making it clear that's not how he sees this place. Without wasting time, he lays it all out, saying he's here to treat the sick. That's when the blue window activates the eloquence skill, and his strong will to help the sick comes through with powerful clarity. The eloquence skill and Heart of Steel work together perfectly. Raymond boldly states that even though he's the king's son with the freedom to go anywhere, he chose to come here. He notices the mood shifting as people start talking about why a healer would show up in a place like this. His plan is falling into place. He speaks honestly, saying the poor suffer from illness just like anyone else, but there's never anyone to heal them. Then he opens up about his past, revealing how his own mother died right here, untreated and forgotten. Hansen feels the weight of that story and it hits him hard. Soon, Raymond's voice echoes through all of Vey as he shares his true reason for coming back is to treat their sickness. Being poor or not having a title should never be a reason to be denied care, which is he has stepped inside Vey to run his infirmary. Though he understands why no one would believe him, Raymond still makes an offer to treat the sick in the deepest part of town, down on Crescent Street. Hansen starts freaking out while the crowd finds it seriously weird that this guy would choose a place even they avoid. Turns out, Crescent Street is the roughest area in all of Vey, also known as the entertainment district. It's where the cursed people live and work, and most folks want nothing to do with it. Raymond boldly announces that he's taking a vow to lift the curse of God from everyone affected. On their way there, Hansen nervously wonders what if the curse is actually some kind of infectious disease. Then they're both doomed. He tries to reason with Ray, saying that the cursed lives separately from everyone else for a reason, probably because of that. But Raymond checks it out himself and calmly tells Hansen that he's free to wait outside if he's too worried. That only sends chills down Hansen's spine, and he quickly decides to stick with him. Hansen says he's interested in learning medical science and wants to stay by Raymond's side to learn even more. Raymond isn't really into being called master or anything like that, but as soon as they rush inside, things take a turn. He bumps into a woman who looks like a creepy ghost running low on sleep and caffeine. Raymond comes clean, saying he's here to heal them, but she finds that absolutely hilarious. She reveals herself with skin covered in red spots and dares Ray, the so-called healer, to cure what she calls the curse of God. Hansen immediately thinks it has to be infectious, but Ray insists on taking a closer look, which surprises the woman. Most people wouldn't dare come near them. He quickly examines the red spots and some ulcers too, and it's clear to him that this isn't a curse, just a simple skin disease. He, with her permission, asks to examine the others as well, including all the affected areas. The women are willing to show their skin, though they warn Raymond not to blame them if he ends up cursed. He calmly explains that this disease doesn't spread by touch, so they can relax. Not only that, he takes the time to educate the women, letting them know it's nothing supernatural, just a treatable skin disease. Whispers start floating around among the women, but Ray gently breaks the truth that it's syphilis. When asked about the cure, the soon-to-be great healer explains that the spots will go away, and the disease becomes dormant since it's a version of syphilis. Some people were lucky enough to get treated early and manage their symptoms before things got worse, but those with advanced stages were unfairly labeled as cursed by God. Hansen is scribbling down all this ancient medical knowledge like he just unlocked a hidden treasure. Raymond remembers that the treatment is the same for all types of syphilis. Without missing a beat, he asks for some stale, rotten bread, planning to create a magic pellet. Hansen has no clue what Raymond's up to, but he beams with a big smile and gives him his full support anyway. Magic pellet is actually the legendary drug penicillin, the one that flipped the entire medical world upside down. There's no need to go all out, making it just for syphilis when Lepentina's herbs can do the job just fine. The only problem is that what he really needs is way too expensive, which is a total bummer. Raymond starts whining and calling out to his future treasures, the riches he swears will be his someday. Compared to the rare ingredients, moldy bread is way cheaper, so he decides to extract penicillin from that instead. Sometime later, Raymond manages to create a penicillin solution and mixes it with the staph bacteria he collected from the patient's skin. Right then and there, he watches the penicillin do its thing, wiping out the bacteria completely. That's how Lepentina got its very first batch of antibiotics thanks to the Shadow Prince, and he earns the title of creator of penicillin. It's something even future generations will respect. For this breakthrough, he gets 100 skill points and 2 bonus level ups. On top of that, he learns the skill of alchemy, though his extraction level is still low. Right after that, basic alchemy kicks in and floods his brain like a burst of knowledge, giving him the power to pull components out of herbs and turn them into usable extracts. This way, he figured out how to cut down the amount he needed and drastically lowered his expenses. Now that's a nice sight. Gold piling up and making medicine just got way easier. Fast forward to the application part, he had all the women from the entertainment district rub the ointment all over their bodies. That pretty much drained the energy out of these two dummies, and they started dreaming about getting a day off. Days passed, and the women were honestly shocked to see their skin glowing like it used to. They believed the curse had finally lifted and couldn't thank the healer enough. They had no idea how to repay him, especially knowing how expensive all of it must have been. Raymond clearly sees that these women were left behind in the mess of Vayslum for so long, so expecting money isn't realistic. But he's not too worried about that, because this is how he plans to promote his infirmary. He humbly tells the women that helping the sick is his calling, and their recovery is all the reward he needs. Though deep down, he knows that if his infirmary catches on like wildfire, his fortune's just a matter of time. Before heading out, he invites anyone with similar symptoms to visit the infirmary for treatment, which lights up their day even more. Deep inside, he's gloating, secretly hoping these women will spread the word about his good deeds and help shape his future. Meanwhile, the other women can't believe someone like him exists, especially when the healers they've met before were nothing but crooks. Hansen, on the other hand, is ready to crash into bed. Sooner or later, the news of the women from Kristen Street getting healed spreads like wildfire across Vay, all thanks to the Shadow Prince's free treatment. Word gets around that Prince Raymond opened up an infirmary, and now people are starting to see him differently, not as just another bratty prince. One person even mentions taking their mother to see him. Just like that, Raymond finally completes the quest called Convert the Hearts of the Slums and unlocks the achievement Helper of the Common Folk. He earns 30 skill points and gains a solid degree of favor from the people of Vay. Raymond can't help but tear up after reaching such a meaningful goal. The next day, a massive crowd shows up, all eager to get checked by him. The infirmary is packed with people, and Dr. Ray is beyond thrilled, knowing his future fortune is just around the corner. Without a doubt, Healer Ray tells everyone to form a line and get their numbers, then start seeing patients one by one, treating them while racking up experience and skill points. Even Hansen's having a good time helping out under Raymond's care. Raymond is grinning over the commission he gets from Hansen's experience points, which are helping him level up even faster. He's honestly proud of his decision to take Hansen under his wing. One old woman compliments Raymond's gentle and kind nature, saying that other healers used to be cruel and disrespectful toward her. Her son can't stop thanking the Shadow Prince for treating his mother, and that grateful smile warms Raymond's heart. Later on, Hansen curiously asks how he came up with the cure for syphilis. Raymond starts to say it's from an ancient relic, but then quickly tries to cover it up. Hansen doesn't buy it and calls him out, asking if the knowledge just magically dropped into his head. Raymond finally breaks and admits it with a loud yes, shouting that it's true and there's nothing he can do about it. Hansen just shrugs it off and accepts it. Suddenly, a woman comes running into the Shadow Prince's arms, crying and begging him to help her sick mother. Just as the woman explains her mother's stomach problems, Hansen quietly notes how deeply committed Raymond is to helping people, no matter what. He remembers how it's always been like that. Even back when they were in Belland, with no access to medical science, Raymond would still put patients first. Hansen always saw him studying late into the night, doing whatever he could to improve. He starts to think maybe Raymond got this mysterious power because he's one of the few who genuinely care for others. Soon after, Raymond calls Hansen to prep for surgery, and time flies. By night, Raymond finally finishes up with the patients and calls it a day after all the chaos. That's when he grins and asks if Hansen's ready to go over the bookkeeping. But the moment Hansen checks the earnings, he's completely stunned. There's barely any money, and they actually lost more than they gained. Raymond reminds him that he didn't charge the poorest folks at all, calling it part of the infirmary's promotion. Still, this crybaby Hansen clearly didn't expect a loss like this. Even so, he knows Raymond would never turn anyone away just because they couldn't pay. They both decide to give the infirmary more time to shine, and Hansen agrees to work for free a little longer. They see it as an investment in building their reputation and skills, holding on to the hope that one day, even the rich will line up at their door. And with that, they promise to stay strong and wait for that day to come. Meanwhile, someone lurking in the shadows is cursing Raymond under their breath, clearly not happy about his growing influence. They've decided they won't let him or his little clinic stick around much longer. Turns out, the illegal healers in the area have been losing all their customers because of Ray's free treatments and genuine care. Their only way of surviving has been to bleed the peasants dry, both in money and health. So now they're thinking of teaming up and forcing Raymond to raise his prices. That way, they can go back to sucking profits out of the desperate and sick like before. While the great healer and Hansen's experience keeps leveling up, they both continue treating patients and remind them not to overwork and to take care of themselves. Just then, they hear footsteps approaching, and a group of people steps in asking if they're the new healers in town. Raymond steps forward confidently, calling himself part of the Healer Alliance in Vey. The group starts complaining that Dr. Ray's work is disrupting the entire healing market, claiming he's messing up their order. They demand that he raise his prices to 100 pina or shut down and leave Vey. Hansen immediately freaks out, realizing that's 10 times more than what they currently charge, which is just insane. Ray gets serious and tells them flat out that no one in Vey can afford that much. But the group doesn't care at all, bragging that their healing power is like a gift from the heavens, and if people want divine-level treatment, they have to pay the divine price. As for the poor who can't afford it, they don't give a damn if they live or die. That heartless attitude really hits Raymond's nerves. Raymond quickly realizes that the reason Vey is drowning in sickness is because of these outlandish scoundrels draining people dry with their ridiculous fees. Their so-called high prices have kept the poor from getting proper treatment, and that bitter truth hits him hard, reminding him of how his own mother died thanks to jerks like these. The memory fills his heart with pure disgust. He knows how illegal healers operate, lurking in the shadows after getting decertified, and there's no point trying to reason with people like them. All they understand is force. With a glare full of rage and disgust, Raymond stares them down, calling out how disgusting their attitude is, especially when speaking to a noble. A big vein throbs in his forehead as his fury builds, and he calls on Hansen to bear witness to how these fools just insulted a noble right to his face. On top of that, he throws in Count August's name, saying that the Count personally sponsors him, and there's no way he would be happy to hear that Dr. Ray was blackmailed into raising his prices. Hansen's anger shoots off the charts, and he's ready to report the incident to the guards. But those scumbags laugh it off, claiming there are far scarier forces here than the throne. Raymond knows they're probably right. The city guards wouldn't bother coming to this area, no matter how much gold was waved in their faces. Still, he threatens them, saying Count August's personal guards aren't the kind to sit idle if anyone tries to hurt him or Hansen. That shuts the scumbags up real quick, their smug faces twisting into worry as they realize August is backing Raymond. Raymond can't help but gloat a little, pleased that his words are landing just right. He reassures Hansen that these lowlifes only respond to power, and they'd never dare lay a finger on someone with a man like August behind them. While the great healer and Hansen go back to treating their patients, the illegal healers gather for an emergency meeting, all rattled after hearing that Count August is sponsoring the very man who's ruining their shady business. On top of that, the novice healer is technically a noble by name, and if they mess with him any further, they risk catching real charges. That's when they turn to Lance, a former healer who once lost everything at Belland Infirmary because of Ray's interference. Lance still doesn't understand why Raymond showed up in this dump of a town, of all places. After being charged with contempt and fraud, his license got revoked, forcing him to scurry into Vey and live like a beggar, healing people illegally. The idea of Ray thriving here burns him up inside. So, he suggests a plan, spreading rumors that Dr. Ray's healing techniques are nothing but trickery and lies. He casually tells the others that even a 10 pana bribe can sway those poor vagrants to believe anything. Once the gossip spreads, it'll be the people themselves who kick Raymond out. The others love the idea, and they put the plan into motion, ready to watch Lance take his sweet revenge. All of a sudden, a guy stumbles in, all bruised and beaten, complaining about how the person he tried bribing to spread rumors about Raymond ended up getting smacked instead, just for suggesting it. Apparently, the people have finally caught on to how the illegal healers have been draining them dry. They used to have no choice but to go to them, no matter how awful they were, but that's not the case anymore. Now the people are ready to punish the illegal healers. At this point, Lance decides it's time to bring in the Blue Moon Guild, which takes everyone by surprise. Unlike the other blood-sucking guilds, the Blue Moon Guild is more of a civil militia that protects the folks of Vey from anyone looking to exploit them. Even though they're not exactly fans of the illegal healers, the lackeys share how the guild seems to feel just like the people do now, furious and ready to act. Lance struts in like some twisted hero among scumbags, claiming he's got a plan. He explains that the Blue Moon Guild was originally formed to fight off the Dark Blade, a gang that used to terrorize and rob the people of Vey. These days, merchants pay the guild to keep them safe, so the guild has grown in influence. The guildmaster, Kanseer, is a strong and righteous man, but he's got one major flaw: he's gullible. Lance visits Kanseer, filling his ears with lies, claiming that Dr. Ray is cooking up a big plan to mess with the people. He even tells Kanseer that he was once Raymond's teacher back at the Belland Infirmary. And the biggest lie is that Lance says Raymond's treating the people of Vey like test subjects. For a second, Kanseer looks furious, but then he hesitates, remembering all the rumors floating around that Dr. Ray's been treating people for free. Lance assures Kanseer that Dr. Ray's just taking advantage of the people to test out some new healing techniques, and if anything goes wrong, no one would ever find out. He talks about the possible side effects if this continues and insists Kanseer is the only one Vey can count on. After a lot of thinking, Kanseer finally decides to kick Raymond out, and Lance is already overjoyed just imagining Ray getting beaten to a pulp. The next day, Kanseer shows up, and Blue Window picks up on a rude customer entering the infirmary, scaring the crap out of Hansen. Raymond's totally confused, wondering why this giant, grumpy bear of a man is suddenly in their place. In a flash, Kanseer threatens the new healers, demanding they pack up and leave or face his wrath. All Raymond can think about is how his dream of building a fortune from this place is crumbling to dust. Just then, a patient shows up, demanding to know why Kanseer's so mad. Without missing a beat, Kanseer accuses Raymond of using the people of Vey as guinea pigs and running human experiments. Raymond is left speechless while the patients stare in wide-eyed shock. Kanseer shouts that Dr. Ray's healing methods are nothing but trickery, and that the no-fee treatment is just bait to fool them all. He tells everyone to leave the infirmary immediately, but Raymond steps in, yelling that it's all lies. Suddenly, a blue window pops up, signaling the activation of the skill dealing with crazies paired with Heart of Steel. It's a bonus quest that hits him out of nowhere, tasking him with treating a rude patient. Apparently, if Raymond reaches out with real sincerity, he can win any patient over to his side. The rewards look sweet: 10 skill points, a bonus level up, and the rude patient's full-on favor. Just like that, Raymond's fear melts away as he hits a state of real calm. The word rude means the patient must be dealing with something painful, after all. Without wasting time, Raymond suits up and flips on the charm, explaining that his healing technique is actually recognized by the king himself and certified by the Tower of Healing. He even points out to Kanseer that the other illegal healers in Vey are trying to slander him just because his fees are low. That clicks something in Kanseer's mind, reminding him how Lance used to charge outrageous fees, which probably drove the townsfolk mad. The guy even scammed money out of Blue Moon Guild members. That just lights Kanseer's fuse, and he storms off, saying he needs to do a little verification, promising to return. But Raymond stops him, knowing this guy is actually the patient mentioned in the quest. Raymond's clever side kicks in hard. There's no way he's letting a high-ranking thug walk off without paying up. So he shifts into sweet talk mode. While chatting over a cup of tea, he casually asks if Kanseer's got some nagging issue the other healers couldn't fix. That's when Kanseer finally opens up, looking a bit embarrassed, saying he's been having recurring problems in his rectum, with blood in his stool. Raymond quickly puts 2 and 2 together. It's hemorrhoids. Without missing a beat, Raymond offers to treat him, saying it's a pretty easy fix. Kanseer's feeling a little unsure, but the fact that Lance already drained a fortune from him over this same issue pushes him to trust Raymond's words that it won't come back. Now the surgery's all set, and Dr. Ray figures out the problem is a grade 3 internal hemorrhoid, so he gets ready to cut off the affected tissue using surgeon's finesse. His attunement bumps up to 28. First comes the anesthetic herbs, then he cuts off the hemorrhoid tissue and ties the blood vessel with thread. After that, he makes a cut above the tie and stitches up the wound to finish the whole thing. Out of nowhere, a bunch of blue windows pop up, rewarding him with 10 skill points and a level up. Meanwhile, Kensier's stunned that it was done so fast. Raymond calmly tells him he'll have around 3 days of discomfort, but recommends doing a sitz bath until the pain goes away. Then he explains exactly what kind of bath that is. In the end, Kensier's all smiles, super thankful that Dr. Ray finally fixed a problem he'd been suffering from for years. Of course, Raymond's real focus is on the payment. He's thinking 20 or 30 pina would be nice. But Kansier says no real kindness can be paid back with a few lousy coins. Raymond doesn't mind the sound of money, but what really shocks him is Kansier pledging to be his full-time bodyguard in Vey, offering high-level protection to his infirmary. And just like that, Kansier throws down a stack of nearly 300 pina that leaves the great healer and Hansen with their jaws on the floor. With that said, Kansier storms off to take down Lance. Even when Lance's name comes up, Raymond couldn't care less. He's too excited thinking about eating beef for dinner. Meanwhile, Kansier's out there wreaking havoc, ready to crush Master Lance for conning him and the poor people for so long. Not to mention, Raymond can't believe Lance has the nerve to slander a saint like him of all people. The illegal healers squad, taking a united front, admits their mistakes and begs the big guy to spare them. However, Kansier's smacks and hits break their teeth, sending them off with a lesson. Anyone who stays in Vey will get a lifetime of porridge. These scumbags are chased out and are never seen here again. In the meantime, Raymond's infirmary hits great success after that incident, and his experience points soar to new heights, reaching level 28. He's itching to reach 40 real soon. However, he notices the patient flow is taking a toll on his physical strength, so he decides to focus on increasing his strength first. After that, he plans to invest in intelligence. Soon, his solo leveling will earn him the title of the greatest healer this land has ever seen. One day, Kansier bursts in with dangerous news. A plague is coming, forcing Raymond to pack up and run. He's sure anyone who stays will be infected and die. Hansen's freaking out seeing this coming from a giant bear man. Raymond knows it's smallpox with a fatality rate of over 30%, and it's as deadly as the Black Plague. Raymond believes he might be able to save some people, but there's no treatment that will save everyone. However, Raymond's mind is torn over whether he should leave or not. Apparently, the Grim Reaper in the lands of Vey is actually smallpox, also known as the Cursed Mist or Black Death. This requires everyone to flee the designated area, as per the Tower of Healing's emergency regulations. Raymond knows that smallpox has long been marked as the mass victim maker in general medicine. He doesn't want to become just another number in history, and it's clear that the infected must be burned to a crisp. However, the former victim of the Curse of God asks if this is truly the Grim Reaper, or just another disease causing havoc, something Raymond can prove with his knowledge. It's also been a long time since smallpox attacked this area of Husto, which makes it strange that it's appearing now. Raymond starts thinking, and he asks about the ongoing symptoms. That's when he learns about high fever, horrible blisters all over, and how the former infected people who had the same illness believe it's come back with the same indicators. Raymond feels a thrill, as these symptoms could mean a lot of things, so maybe it's treatable. He plans to take a closer look to confirm whether it's actually smallpox or not. Hansen's ready to hear Raymond's thoughts so they can pack up and run. Raymond is clear about the infected being burned alive, even if it's not smallpox. But Hansen's pulling a crybaby move, saying they'll surely die along with the infected if that's the case. Raymond needs someone with more expertise to figure this out. Just then, the Blue Window assigns him a quest to save patients from wrongful death, with a medium difficulty. He has to use his knowledge to save people from unjust death, promising rewards of 20 skill points and a bonus level up. Just like that, Raymond decides not to leave Vey hanging, knowing he might be able to do something if it's not smallpox. Many diseases, like smallpox, spread through droplets. An infected person's saliva or mucus can spread the disease simply by coughing. In these circumstances, Raymond needs a physical way to stop the droplets from entering their airways. He asks Hansen to bring thick cloth to make a mask, gloves, and robes to cover the body, because Raymond plans on seeing the sick himself. Afterward, there's a big commotion with people screaming in pain, while a couple begs to leave their children out of it. However, the townsfolk are prepared with flames to burn them alive anyway. Out of nowhere, Ray, all mummified in a cloak, walks in, freaking out the others. Raymond introduces himself to calm them down, explaining that apparently the house members have been infected by the Grim Reaper, and the townsfolk are on duty to cleanse it with fire. Raymond questions them on how they diagnosed this professionally. For a moment they hesitate but mention the high fever and terrible blisters as signs of the Grim Reaper's presence. Raymond points out that measles and shingles also have those symptoms, but this sickness hasn't been properly identified yet. He bravely takes it upon himself to figure it out. The crowd is horrified, but he goes ahead and opens the marker to gain extra defense just in case. Without a shadow of a doubt, he spends 100 skill points to buy Shield, an auxiliary magic skill that helps defend against physical damage. His mana is low, so it only lasts a short while. After activating it, he walks in with no fear of droplets, at least for now. Hansen's jaw hits the floor when he sees Ray with shield magic on. Inside the house, there's a mother with 3 children, all begging to live. When they meet Ray, the healer, they think he's a prince come to save them. He insists on examining them first. Visually, the illness mimics smallpox, but it's not the Grim Reaper, it's actually chickenpox. The key difference is that there are no spots on the hands and feet. The white marks are only surface level. He assures them it'll go away on its own, so there's nothing to worry about. The woman is completely shocked, and Dr. Ray leaves her absolutely amazed. After that, he explains everything to the folks outside and calms the fire. Sometime later, the woman prays in gratitude to the Shadow Prince for rescuing them and says her children are all fine now. Even the flame warriors from that night thank the Shadow Prince for stopping them from killing the innocent. Right then, his quest ends, and he unlocks the achievement called People's Caretaker, earning 20 skill points along with level ups. His reputation increases, and he also receives a fair amount of favors. Raymond loves the warm feeling that settles inside him, filled with the joy of seeing Vey finally reaching some stability. Everyone's happy now, looking forward to a healthier future. Meanwhile, the king is having trouble with Vey for becoming a growing liability, and Droton is on the verge of starting a war. Linzen supports the third prince's opinion that Vey must be brought down. Now the final decision rests with the king. This time around, Raymond's kitchen is flooded with the aroma of grilled meat. Hanson's cooking up a feast after the family who had chickenpox shared some meat with them as a thank you gift. Raymond can't stop drooling, casually dropping the fact that beef helps boost immunity, while Hanson happily serves it up. As they eat, Raymond feels good about hitting level 29 and having earned the favor of the people. After all the chaos, they're finally enjoying some peace. Raymond is confident that once he reaches level 40, he'll leave his novice days behind, and a much easier phase of treating patients will begin. Out of nowhere, Hanson drops a question, asking if Raymond really used shield magic at the infected house. As usual, Raymond panics and starts lying, but decides to come clean. He confesses the truth behind the magic, and Hanson actually thinks it's pretty cool. But the soon-to-be great healer explains the shield only lasts a short time, so it's not that big of a deal. Hanson figures it's probably because Raymond's low on mana, the mystical power used for healing, magic, auras, and more. Healers heal, mages cast spells, and knights use mana blades and auras. As a healer, Raymond does have some mana, but his stats are sitting around 1. Hanson thinks upgrading the mana would really help Raymond treat patients better. Everyone uses mana, sure, but the way knights, mages, and healers apply it is totally different. Knights train by building lower chi under the navel. Mages focus on knowledge to form middle chi in the chest, and healers develop upper chi in the brain that flows through the whole body. Out of all three, healers have the hardest time accumulating mana, which is why those God-gifted folks with huge mana reserves make the best healers, and a grade F- like Raymond used to be is considered nothing. That's why he could never really improve or grow his skills. Still, he hasn't figured out which type of mana actually powers his medical science abilities. Out of the 3 sources, the novice healer is using magic without storing any energy in his chest, so he figures it must be the system doing all the work, and he really needs to read up on it. Just then, a patient's scream shakes the place, and both the great healer and Hanson rush out to help a man who has fallen off a roof. When Raymond finds him not breathing, he immediately tells Hanson to start CPR. Meanwhile, the king is visiting Vey to meet the people, but his servant Garmin isn't happy about it, especially since Prince Remerton got hurt in this dangerous place. King Houston brushes it off, reminding Garmin that he's a sword master. They want to get a better feel of the town, so the king decides to stop by the saloon. Inside, while the royal group enjoys their drinks, they overhear some drunk locals gossiping about a patient who died at this soon-to-be great healer's infirmary. Apparently, even though Raymond tried CPR for nearly an hour, it wasn't enough. The folks talk about his low fees, but also whisper rumors about human experimentation, saying he's just like the other princes and how the people of Toila see all royals as nothing but tools of power. Suddenly, a woman stands up for Ray, pointing out how other healers wouldn't have even tried to save the man, but those two never turned their backs, not even for an hour. She says the healer even cried beside the body when he couldn't save it. According to modern medicine, a doctor is supposed to grow from the deaths of their patients, and when Raymond broke the news to the man's wife and kid, he was so heartbroken he kept apologizing while bawling his eyes out. He truly never wants to go through that again. The woman defends Raymond with all her heart, calling him an angel sent from heaven and a prince meant to serve the people. Her words spark others to speak up too, sharing how the Shadow Prince helped their families and friends while other healers only moved for a hefty price. The crowd begins to hail him as the Prince of Slums. Back home, Raymond unlocks the title, Helper of the Poor, and his reputation in Vey blows up. The title now comes with an extra effect, recognizing him as someone who supports the downtrodden, but holds major influence among the people of Vey. As a reward, he earns 20 skill points and a bonus level up. Raymond beams with happiness, already dreaming of the fortune he might make in the near future. Meanwhile, the king and Garmin realize that Dr. Ray's popularity in Vey has completely blown through the roof. Garmin had thought the guy wouldn't even survive basic living, but before he can say much, the king suddenly starts coughing badly, and it's only getting worse. Deciding it's time to return to the palace, they head out, but along the way, they hear a woman crying for help while a bunch of lunatics are messing with her. The king, fired up to teach them a lesson, draws his sword, which is already leaking a fierce sword aura. He dashes forward, takes down the thugs in an instant, and frees the woman, assuring her that she's safe now. But just as he lowers his guard, the woman turns out to be no victim at all. She's a planted assassin. With a wicked grin, she whips out a knife glowing with an aura and lunges straight at the king. Odin manages to defend himself just in time from the girl he had rescued from the thugs, only to be shocked when he realizes she's actually an assassin who set him up. He swings his blade and slashes her shoulder, but before he can follow up, she whispers a smokescreen spell. At first, Odin assumes she's using it to escape without being seen, but as the smoke thickens, he starts feeling something strange in his throat. He begins to suspect the smoke was no accident, especially if she somehow knew about his coughing illness. Suddenly, she lunges at him from behind, but thanks to Odin's quick reflexes, she only manages to graze his arm before he turns around and drives his blade into her chest. She collapses with a heavy thud. Moments later, Garmin rushes over asking if Odin is okay. Odin insists he's fine, but Garmin points to the skin around the wound turning purple, warning that it's poison. When Odin tries to brush it off, Garmin stresses that they need to treat it now before a small cut turns into losing the entire arm. Odin mentions that the castle's AAA healer, Helion, should be able to handle it, but Garmin quickly tells him that waiting until then might be too late. Despite acting calm in front of Garmin, Odin can clearly see the signs of necrosis, and he knows that if nothing is done, it'll likely result in having to amputate his arm. When Garmin suddenly suggests visiting Raymond's infirmary for emergency care, Odin reluctantly agrees. The two of them arrive at this soon-to-be great healer's infirmary, both wearing masks and hoods. When Raymond sees the blood on their masks, he panics, wondering if they're guild members who have been in some kind of fight with other guilds. He, trying to hide his fear, invites them inside to treat Odin's arm, but Garmin quickly explains that the injury is poison-related and requires immediate attention. Raymond begins to suspect they might be criminals, but being a good doctor, he decides to move forward with the treatment. When he examines the cut and sees how serious it is, he asks if there are any other symptoms. Odin responds that he's feeling lightheaded, his pulse is irregular, and something about his voice sounds familiar to the Shadow Prince. They state the symptoms, and Dr. Ray explains that the poison seems to be a mix of hemolysin and a neurotoxin. Odin feels that Dr. Ray isn't qualified enough to treat it, so he asks him to at least stop the poison from spreading for now, so he can get more advanced treatment elsewhere. However, Raymond reassures him that he can treat it using white snake antivenom since the poison is a combination of triple white snake venom and alpenrose extract. Garmin, impressed, questions Raymond's knowledge of the poison, noting that identifying such a mix usually takes longer. Raymond responds that he learned about this weapon during his apprenticeship and was a grade S in herbology. After thinking it through, Raymond mentions that just administering the antivenom won't be enough because the toxin has been enhanced with white snake venom. So he decides to maximize the effects, even though he knows it might be difficult for them to accept. When they ask him about it, the Shadow Prince says he'll have to inject the antivenom directly into Odin's veins rather than having him ingest it. But Garmin quickly gets defensive and refuses to let Raymond do it, calling it foolishness. The reason for Garmin's reaction is that syringes have never been used in Lepentina. When he tries to intimidate Raymond by emphasizing how important Odin is, Odin interrupts and asks Raymond about the rumors surrounding his infirmary, claiming that he uses patients as experiments. Odin steps closer to the Shadow Prince, threatening not to show him mercy if the rumors are true. Raymond feels the strong aura of Odin and stumbles back in fear, wondering if Odin is a swordmaster. His Heart of Steel skill activates, and once he's no longer terrified of Odin, Garmin is confused by how Odin's aura seems to have no effect on Raymond. Meanwhile, Raymond smirks, thinking of them as crazy. Raymond decides to stand his ground and tries convincing them that his suggested treatment is nothing more than a well-practiced technique from ancient times. He grabs Odin's hand and swears on his mother's surname, Pennin, to prove his pure intentions. After thinking it over, Odin finally agrees to the treatment, so Raymond pulls out his syringe. When Odin questions it, the soon-to-be great healer explains that it's made by the dwarves and is used to inject medicine directly into the blood. After warning Odin about the sting from the needle, Raymond injects it. Once it's done, Garmin anxiously checks on Odin. Just as Odin is about to say something, he suddenly gets dizzy, which makes Raymond panic, wondering if he did it wrong since it was the first time he used a syringe. To their surprise, Odin finally looks up and says that the dizziness and headache are gone, and he feels much better than before. He wonders how the antidote worked so quickly when it usually takes much longer. Raymond breathes a sigh of relief and gets excited about eating meat the next day. Odin then asks if his arm will heal on its own, and Dr. Ray tells him that the necrosis will stop soon, and without any unpleasant effects, the skin will repair naturally. Odin realizes he made the right choice coming to the Shadow Prince, or else he would have lost his arm. Feeling grateful for Raymond's healing of Princess Sophia earlier, he decides to reward him. Hansen arrives at the infirmary and is surprised to see the 2 patients who arrived in his absence. Odin, appreciating Raymond's work, asks him what he would like as a reward. Without second, Dr. Ray asks for money, which surprises Odin. Raymond then generously clarifies that healing patients is his job, so Odin just needs to pay for the treatment since it's no big deal. However, in his mind, the novice healer is plotting greedily, planning to demand a large sum since Odin seems to be a high-ranking guild member, given his aura. After stating that he'll only charge money, Raymond adds that it will be an expensive amount. Garmin asks in surprise if Raymond doesn't want anything else, since they could easily grant him anything with their authority. Dr. Ray, acting like a saint, says he's just a healer with an obligation to treat his patients. Meanwhile, he secretly plans to demand a hefty sum that would be difficult for them to pay. While Garmin acknowledges his integrity, Odin casually asks for the amount. The Shadow Prince says 500 pesos, something he hasn't asked from any of his patients before. Garmin's eyes widen in surprise, and Hansen leans in to whisper that 500 pesos is what most folks in Vey earn in 6 months. But when Raymond stands his ground, Hansen just sighs and tells him to ask for coins instead of a check. Even though Raymond feels the price might be too high for them, Garmin actually thinks 500 is way too little for the antidote. He says anyone else would have asked for around 2,000 and considers Raymond a generous healer. Odin then curiously asks why Raymond is working so hard here when he clearly has the skill to open his own infirmary in a better town. Glad he wasn't questioned about the fees, Raymond just smiles and says he has a bigger goal. Garmin is touched and assumes Ray's goal is to heal people for the rest of his life. He can't believe how gracefully this random man has grown up. As Odin gets up to leave, he suddenly claims he doesn't have any money on him, which gives Raymond a mini heart attack, thinking they're about to walk away with free treatment. But instead, Odin hands him a ring. Raymond's eyes light up at the sight of the fancy piece, and when Hansen takes a closer look, he recognizes it holds a mermaid's tear pearl, something worth 10,000 pina. Before leaving, Odin tells them the ring is just a deposit and hints that their little infirmary will be booming by the time he visits again. Once Garmin and Odin are gone, the great healer and Hansen just stare at the ring, barely able to process it, before bursting with excitement about finally getting to eat beef for dinner. Garmin thinks about how Odin's illegitimate son is able to do what the princes couldn't. Odin orders him to investigate the person behind the assassination attempt, suspecting there's a spy in the castle. The person responsible for the assassination attempt learns that Odin is completely fine and can't believe it, considering how strong the poison was. He decides to take a different approach in the future, but wonders who that skillful healer was who saved Odin. The glowing globe, which the man is speaking to, suggests getting rid of the healer, but the man refuses, saying no one can stop their next plan from succeeding. With another month to prepare, the man decides to destroy the Kingdom of Houston. Meanwhile, Hansen and Dr. Ray enjoy their beef dinner, feeling their immune systems strengthen with each bite. Suddenly, there's loud knocking on their door. When Raymond opens it, he finds big, muscular guards confirming his identity. Raymond wonders why an underworld guild would show up at their place and asks what brings them here. From behind the guards, Toms, a business owner from Langtrom, steps forward and introduces himself. Raymond quickly recognizes him as an autocrat from the entertainment district and the head of the Dark Blade Guild. Toms claims he's come to deliver a message and asked for permission to come inside. Toms and his men walk inside, and when he sees the meat, he calls it animal food because it's of low quality. He presses his finger against the plate, and it shatters into pieces, leaving the great healer and Hansen shocked. Hansen quietly whispers to the Shadow Prince that Toms was once the top-ranked mana user and knight. Toms orders his men to throw away the cheap meat, and they start slamming things around. Raymond doesn't understand why Toms is at their place, and his facing the boars skill activates. He decides to meet them head-on by acting like them and asks Toms what he's here for. Toms notices Raymond's confident demeanor and realizes that Dr. Ray isn't intimidated by him. Toms replies that he's just here to greet the diligent healer in Vey and that he brought something for him. One of Tom's men steps forward and hands Raymond a small bag of gold. Hansen estimates it to be around 1,000, and Dr. Ray, equally shocked, asks Toms why he's receiving the bag. Tom smirks and calls it a reward for Raymond's hard work, then adds that he has a small request as well. Raymond quickly realizes that the request is the real reason for Tom's visit and asks about it. Toms tells him in an authoritative voice not to heal any enemy of the Dark Blade Guild. Raymond can't believe Toms is telling him not to treat people, but Toms explains the damage Raymond has done to their guild indirectly and expresses his dislike for seeing his enemies treated while his guild suffers. When Raymond tries to negotiate, Toms pulls out a dagger and throws it toward Ray, the blade striking the wall just a few inches from his neck. Toms coldly states that in the Vey Quarter, even the king's men can't have protection, and he corners Raymond against the wall while unsheathing his sword. With a threatening tone, Toms warns Raymond that the only way to have a bright future is to obey him. Toms withdraws the sword from Raymond's neck and bids him goodbye in an intimidating manner, hoping to meet him again in the same friendly way. After they leave, the novice healer is left stunned, while Hansen asks if he's okay. As Raymond cleans up the mess, Hansen worries about how they can stand up to such a dangerous guildmaster, knowing they could die if they disobey Tom's. Raymond thinks about learning a self-defense skill and opens his screen, but realizes he needs 15 strength stats to learn the skill and is 2 ranks short. Raymond doesn't understand how he'll be able to face Tom's, who is likely already skilled in swordsmanship and mana, so even if he somehow learns the self-defense skills, he still won't be able to protect himself. While worrying about how to stay fair to his patients, the Shadow Prince suddenly receives a quest to not give in to the pressure he's feeling and to treat his patients fairly. As they both stress over what to do, someone starts banging on their door. They quickly rush to open it and find 2 men carrying a third, who seems to be the patient. Raymond asks what happened, and one of the men explains that Tom's, the Darkblade Guildmaster, did this to their companion when they failed to pay the protection money on time, as Tom's had demanded. The Great Healer and Hansen are shocked to learn that the Darkblade Guildmaster is responsible for the man's injuries, meaning they are now enemies of Tom's, and should avoid treating the patient if they want to stay safe from his wrath. The men laid the patient down and urgently asked Raymond to treat him. Healer Ray examines the man and finds a broken rib and punctured lungs. As he's about to start treatment, Hansen nervously reminds him of Tom's warning. However, the patient starts coughing up blood, so Raymond decides to disregard Tom's threat and proceed with the treatment. Raymond further examines the patient and finds out that the patient has a faint heartbeat along with extreme internal injury, so he decides to first remove the internal blood. He calls out Hansen to get the surgical instruments, but Hansen tries to remind him of the possible danger from Tom's. Raymond shouts at him to remind him how severe the patient's condition is, and tells him to quickly grab the instruments. After a while, Raymond walks out and informs the men that the patient is going to be fine soon. The men cry in thankfulness when Hansen calls Raymond to talk. He asks Raymond about the consequences of disobeying Tom's orders, and asks if they should seek Cansir and the Blue Moon Guild's help. Healer Ray tells that the Blue Moon Guild can't stand against Tom's and wonders if they should flee, but gets reminded of all the debt he owes. As he is worrying about what to do, his quest accomplishment notification pops up, informing him about the upcoming reward for it. Raymond receives a hidden reward that allows him to upgrade any one of his skills to an A grade for a day. Right now, all his skills are still at D grade. Suddenly, he gets 2 new quests. One is to keep treating his patients, and the other is to wipe out the entire Dark Blade Guild. He can't understand why he's being given such a quest when he's just a healer. He even considers running away, but doing that would get him caught by the healer lending group and turned into a slave. Stuck between impossible choices, Raymond starts thinking if he should use his reward to boost his magic skill, since A-grade magic is something only the top-ranking mages have. With that, maybe he could stand a chance against the Dark Blade Guildmaster. But the problem is, even if his magic skill gets boosted, he still doesn't have enough mana to properly cast even a D-grade spell. That's when he starts thinking about using the reward on some other skill that could help him escape this mess. Then suddenly an idea hits him. He runs over to the table and quickly starts writing a letter. He calls out to Hansen and asks if he can send the letter to Cansir. Hansen, confused, watches Raymond scribbling away and asks what's going on and what the letter is about. Raymond says he's not going to run away, which surprises Hansen, and he immediately tries to convince Raymond how risky that decision is, reminding him that the Dark Blade Guildmaster is a violent man. But Raymond calmly assures him that he knows that very well and still chooses to stay. Hansen insists again, saying that treating patients is important, but it could put both of them in serious danger. Raymond finishes writing, places the letter in an envelope, and tells Hansen to just trust him. He knows exactly what he's doing. He hands the envelope to Hansen and reminds him how important his role is in all of this, telling him to deliver the letter to Cansir no matter what. Hansen nods, takes responsibility, and heads out without saying anything more. Once Hansen is gone, Raymond decides it's time to use his temporary level enhancer reward on the skill called Heart of Steels. The moment he activates it, his determination shoots up to the max, and he feels an intense surge of energy rush through him. Suddenly, all his fear disappears. With newfound confidence, Raymond walks straight into the Dark Blade Guild. As expected, Tom's reacts with intimidation, but then casually says that he was just about to visit Raymond regarding a certain matter. Raymond knows exactly what he means. He's definitely planning to kill him for treating that patient. But now, Raymond doesn't feel the slightest bit threatened. With his upgraded skill active, he stands tall and says he has something to say. When Tom's gives him permission, Raymond bows and apologizes, leaving Tom's and his men confused by his sudden behavior. After a short pause, Tom's asks why he did something he now regrets, and Dr. Ray promises not to repeat his mistakes, saying he's realized everything this time and wants to devote his loyalty to him. He puts on an excited act and starts convincing Tom's about the benefits of having a healer by his side, especially one skilled enough to be acknowledged by the king. Toms laughs at this soon-to-be-great healer's offer and questions why someone who used to work for the people of Vey is now offering his services to him. Healer Ray, noticing the guards around them, leans in close to Tom's ear and whispers that his true motive is to make money. He says he couldn't land a proper job, so he ended up setting up shop in Vey, but now that he's found Tom's, he no longer wants to waste his life treating the poor. After living 23 years, Raymond has gotten really good at acting compliant, and with his newly boosted skill, he can now flatter Tom's even better. He keeps pestering Tom's to accept the offer, and even offers to give him a free full-body checkup as a token of his thanks. He then explains how, using an ancient medical technique, he can detect and prevent future diseases through a detailed examination. After Tom's agrees, Raymond asks him to send his men away since the process is confidential. Tom's waves them off and lies down on a nearby couch. Raymond starts by examining his abdomen and slowly moves up to his chest. Tom seems a bit surprised when he notices the strange device Raymond pulls out, a stethoscope crafted by dwarves, so Raymond briefly explains how it works. While checking his chest, the Shadow Prince suddenly claims there's something unusual with Tom's heart and unbuttons his shirt for a closer look. Seizing the perfect moment, Raymond places his hand over Tom's heart and activates his lightning skill. Thanks to the Shadow Prince's high intelligence, the magic hits with full force, knocking Tom's out cold. As soon as he's unconscious, Raymond receives his quest rewards and feels a surge of pride. He realizes that the reason he succeeded was simply because he bowed earlier, and even though Tom's was known as the most violent and powerful man around, he still fell to a single shock aimed at his heart. Raymond pulls out some rope from his suitcase and ties Tom's up tightly, then decides to stay hidden until Kanseer arrives to back him up. He cracks the door open slightly and peeks out, thinking how much easier it'll be to take down the rest of the Dark Blade Guild now that their terrifying guildmaster is captured. Tom's was the reason the guild had such a strong grip, and being one of the best high-ranking mana users, his fall gave Raymond a major edge. After watching the hallway for a bit, Raymond turns around with suspicion, wondering if there's a hidden safe nearby. He figures the feeling might be a result of his Heart of Steel being upgraded to A grade. Digging through Tom's coat, he finds a ring of keys and begins searching the room for a vault or hidden stash. After a bit of rummaging, he finally discovers a small chest tucked away, and a wide smile spreads across his face as excitement fills him. He feels relieved knowing he no longer has to fear the demon healer lenders, but when he opens the chest, he's completely thrown off by the sight of papers instead of money. Confused, he starts reading through them and slowly realizes they're secret records of every crime Tom's has committed and every bribe he has taken from the nobles. As he keeps flipping through the documents, Tom suddenly wakes up and glares at him, demanding to know how he dared to fool him. Still tied up, Tom's can't move but seethes with rage. Dr. Ray, annoyed that Tom's is already conscious, typical knight behavior, tells him to stay down and even threatens him, feeling no fear thanks to his A-graded skill and the ropes keeping Tom's restrained. But to his shock, Tom suddenly channels mana into his hands and slices through the ropes using mana blades, freeing himself with ease and leaving Raymond frozen in disbelief. Tom's rises from the couch and starts walking toward him with fury in his eyes. Dr. Ray, scrambling for words, awkwardly lies that the ropes were part of a special medical exam, but Tom's yells at him to shut up because he's about to kill him. In a panic, Raymond pulls up his stats bar, hoping for a miracle, and notices he has some unused points from leveling up. He quickly boosts his strength by 2, bringing it to 15, and purchases the self-defense skill. With the added skill, his strength temporarily jumps to 25, and although he feels stronger than ever, it still isn't enough. He's facing the most powerful knight in the guild, and despite everything, it looks like he's about to be crushed. Tom's reaches out to kill Ray, but Ray squeezes his eyes shut and thinks about the life he still hasn't lived, a life full of riches and comfort. Refusing to give up, he remembers his Heart of Steel skill and grabs a wooden rod nearby. He swings it at Tom's, who doesn't take it seriously at first, but when the rod actually hits him, Tom's collapses on the floor. Raymond can't believe what just happened. Right after, he starts receiving reward notifications for his bravery, one of which gives him a burst of strength when fighting against someone stronger than himself. Seeing those messages, he becomes convinced that Tom's is truly down for the count. As he debates whether he should tie Tom's up again, a loud rumble echoes from outside the building. He, thinking Kanseer might have arrived, peeks out, and is stunned to see a massive crowd from the Blue Moon Guild gathered outside, yelling to take down the entire Dark Blade Guild while calling Raymond a prince. Still confused, he checks his screen and finds out that he's been given the title of Helper of the Poor. Meanwhile, an hour earlier, Hansen had second thoughts about just handing over the letter to Kanseer and leaving Raymond alone in danger. Realizing that Dr. Ray had done so much for the people of Vey, Hansen decides not to turn a blind eye and instead shouts to everyone nearby, telling them that Dr. Ray went off to fight the Dark Blade Guild alone for their sake. As word spreads, the people become worried for Raymond's safety, and that's how they all ended up coming together to support and save him. Hansen stands silently, watching everything unfold and asking what just happened, while the people around him reassure him that they managed to save Raymond. Inside the vault, Ray gets a little too curious and ends up injuring himself by accident. Despite the pain, he hears the worried voices of the crowd outside and quickly calls out to reassure them, letting everyone know that Tom's is now under his control. This news stuns everyone, including Hansen, who can't believe Raymond has already completed such a tough mission. Raymond notices how calm and relieved everyone has become, and as he holds the unconscious Tom's in his arms, he hears someone outside the window yelling his name in praise. The voice commends his bravery, and soon more people join in, cheering loudly and celebrating his strength and courage. Raymond looks out the window, trying to say something, but the crowd thinks he is waving and bursts into even louder cheers, shouting for their savior, Prince Raymond. In the middle of all the excitement, a few people quietly wonder if it's even okay to call him Prince because of where he comes from, but the majority ignore that and continue praising him as a real hero. As the crowd celebrates, a bunch of system prompts appear in front of Ray, telling him that he has completed the quest, finished the mission, increased his reputation, and gained 50 experience points, which is just enough for him to level up. Inside the palace, a noble questions how a healer like Raymond could possibly take down the highest-ranking noble in the Bay region and end up being praised by so many people. He asks how something like this could even happen. The woman speaking to him explains that Dr. Ray came up with a plan, saved the people from the rogue leader Tom's, and ended up becoming a symbol of hope. She tells him that Tom's had the most mana in the entire region and was seen as incredibly powerful, yet Raymond still managed to defeat him. The noble is visibly impressed. She continues, saying that despite being exhausted and treated poorly, Raymond still risked his life to help others. The noble realizes he completely misjudged the great healer and declares that someone like him definitely deserves a reward. Then she drops an even bigger surprise, revealing that during the mission, Raymond also found a secret book filled with records of crimes committed by powerful noble leaders. The noble's eyes go wide as she explains that the book includes names of those who worked with the Dark Guild and others who took bribes to commit horrible acts. He nervously asks if she's sure, and she confirms it, adding that even the names of Bay Region's own administrators are in the book. Alarmed, he warns that if this information spreads, it could bring down the entire political system. Meanwhile, down in the palace's underground prison, Tom sits alone, full of regret, cursing himself for being taken down by a healer. He vows that next time he won't let Raymond off so easily. As he stews in frustration, 3 armored men enter his cell. At first, Tom smirks, thinking they're nobles coming to rescue him, but his face quickly changes when he realizes they're palace guards getting ready to interrogate him. Panicked, Tom's warns that if any nobles find out about this, there will be serious consequences, but one of the guards calmly tells him that all the nobles have already been arrested and are currently being interrogated. Under intense torture, Tom's eventually breaks and confesses everything about his involvement with the Dark Guild and the crimes committed by the noble leaders. As a result, the Dark Guild is officially dismantled. Raymond becomes known as the savior of the slums, and his level and influence in the Bay region skyrocket. He reflects on how far he's come, now regarded as a true hero by the people. Later, Hansen finds him and offers a homemade beef dish, expressing admiration for how the Shadow Prince has risked his life day and night to protect others. Raymond jokes, asking him to just cook the meat properly, but Hansen insists it's the least he can do for a hero like him. Healer Ray quietly notices how Hansen seems to be slowly distancing himself, maybe out of awe or uncertainty. When Hansen asks how the meat tastes, Healer Ray tells him it's delicious, eating with genuine delight. He thinks about how even people from distant regions now recognize him and want to meet him. When Hansen asks what prize he'll request for his accomplishments, Raymond answers immediately that he wants money, nothing else. The next morning, the great healer and his group board a carriage headed for the palace. He reflects on how the day has finally come, noticing how even the servants now speak to him with respect. Upon arrival, the palace grounds are packed with people cheering his name. The people raise their hands and declare that he is now Sir Ray, ready to cleanse the land of corruption. As he prepares to say his farewells, something suddenly catches his eye to raise his hand. Raymond's attention is caught by a woman in torn clothes, sitting on the ground with a dying baby in her lap. The child is clearly suffering from malnutrition, and Dr. Ray's heart sinks as he looks at them. He tries to hold himself together, realizing that, as a mere healer, he feels powerless to change the harsh lives of the people in the slums. He gazes at the woman with deep pity, thinking to himself how most slum dwellers live in such dire conditions, deprived of basic necessities, while the rich and powerful do nothing to help. He, sitting quietly, clenches his fists tightly, feeling frustration and helplessness wash over him. Just then, a prompt appears before him, a bonus quest notification, stating that he must complete a task with a difficulty level of 0. As Raymond reaches the palace, he overhears people whispering behind his back. They speak cruelly, calling him trash and ill-minded, mocking the idea that someone like him, an illegitimate child, could ever amount to anything. Their harsh words suggest that he belongs in the slums, not among the nobility of the palace. He listens silently, rage simmering inside, vowing to himself that one day he will become the best healer in the world. Then, he will return to confront them and prove that he is worth far more than they claim. As he walks through the palace corridors, he notices two young men bowing in gratitude before Princess Sophia. He pauses, admiring her beauty, but soon sees her become stern and commanding. She scolds the young men, questioning why they are idle and not working toward their assigned targets. Her fierce demeanor leaves them scrambling away in panic. Raymond then approaches her and greets her politely. She responds by saying that their meeting is not intentional, she just happened to be passing by. He notices how she emphasizes the coincidence of their encounter. Just as they are about to part ways, she turns to him and asks what he plans to request for his reward at tonight's ceremony. Raymond replies that he hasn't thought much about it yet. She advises him to choose wisely before walking away. Ray, now feeling a mix of confusion and pressure, heads toward the palace room where Prime Minister Gallman and the second and third princes are already present. As he enters, he curses himself for not knowing in advance about their presence. Overwhelmed, he bows and pays his respects. The two princes watch him coldly, showing no emotion. The third prince, Remerton, burns with jealousy as he rants internally about how the Shadow Prince has suddenly won the hearts of the slum people, something they had tried and failed to do for years. His face tightens in anger as he watches Raymond. The second prince, Karen, smirks and asks Remerton why he's so jealous of someone like Raymond. The two brothers mock Raymond's low birth and humble origins, making crude jokes about him being like a little puppy they plan to use for their own purposes later. They continue whispering, clearly underestimating the great healer and treating him like someone they can manipulate. Soon, the king calls the Shadow Prince forward. Raymond steps ahead and does as instructed. He is then asked the important question of what he wants as his reward for facing such danger and emerging victorious. For a moment, his mind races. He knows the answer has always been money. That was his dream, his way to gain control and power in a world that constantly looked down on him. But then something shifts. He recalls Sophia's words urging him to choose wisely. That single conversation replays in his mind, and his thoughts drift to the starving woman and her dying child, the face of the people he wants to protect. A realization dawns upon him. This is his chance to make a real change. His eyes light up with purpose as he looks up, ready to ask not just for himself, but for something much bigger. A chance to change the fate of the slums forever. Just as Raymond is about to ask for his prize, his thoughts drift back to the slums, the filth, the suffering, and the helplessness he sees every day. He regrets how powerless he has felt for so long. Looking at the king, he steels himself and says what he desires. At that moment, a prompt appears in front of him, stating he have gained the achievement of a good doctor. Doctors treat patients, but good doctors change the world for their patients. He reflects on how someone like him could ever be considered a great doctor. He hesitates, but finally requests funds, not for himself, but from the Dark Guild's confiscated treasury, to be used for the betterment of the Bay region, solely for the people. The king looks at him with a puzzled expression, letting out a slight sigh. The two princes smirk, whispering among themselves that they had expected nothing better from someone of such low birth. Of course, he would ask for money. Raymond looks at his hands, clenches them, and thinks again. He then clarifies that he does not seek the money for himself, but for the people of the Bay. He has it all planned. He intends to change the fate of the people and rebuild his own life in the process. He knows those outside the slums will never understand, but those within will. Building a reputation is the best way to market anyone, and reputation in the slums matters most. A new prompt appears, recognizing his intention. He smiles to himself, confident that he's made the right choice. When he finishes speaking, the king asks him a question. Raymond feels nervous but answers. The king inquires how he intends to use the money for the Bay region. Raymond wonders why the king even asks, as if he doesn't already know the answer. But he gathers his thoughts and explains. He tells them that he wants to work for society to clean the slums' filthy streets, purify the polluted water, and create conditions that prevent disease and infections from spreading. He believes this will make the slums a better, healthier place. The Prime Minister quietly observes, thinking about how the king has long ignored the slums' condition. None of the princes had ever managed to make any progress in their development, yet now the king is asking Raymond how to spend this money. The room falls silent as the weight of this moment sinks in. The Prime Minister wonders if this is the king's way of testing whether Raymond has the qualities of a future leader. Before Raymond can say more, the third prince abruptly speaks up, requesting permission to take charge of the slum's development. He reminds the court that he once tried to advocate for the slum, only to be rejected by the king and lose favor. He shares his ideas for improvement, hoping that this time, the people might see the royal family in a better light and feel more loyal toward them. The two elder princes whisper to each other, clearly displeased. Just then, the king turns back to the Shadow Prince and asks him for more ideas. The palace audience murmurs, questioning how a mere commoner could help the Bay region when even noble geniuses have failed. Raymond steps forward and talks about environmental improvements. The king looks disappointed, which makes Raymond second-guess himself. He wonders if the king expects something different. Holding his ground, he elaborates that true improvement isn't just about cleaning filth. They need cleaner roads that attract traders and boost business. the slums can become a functional, developed area like any other city. The Prime Minister challenges him, asking how the Shadow Prince can be so certain that business will grow. Raymond responds that while the current conditions aren't ideal, the solution lies in building a shortcut that connects the slums to other major trade routes. If they secure it properly, merchants will use the shortcut, increasing traffic and trade. He explains that the Langtrum, which is currently a hub for illegal activity, could be transformed. With help from the crown, it could be cleaned up and rebranded. Nobles seek entertainment, and with proper reforms, the slum could become a social and commercial hotspot. Not only would it host visitors at night, but it could also become a space for families and traders alike. As Raymond finishes, the Prime Minister reflects on how this would improve commerce and create a powerful trademark for the region's economy. He believes the king will appreciate such a forward-thinking response. The king nods and asks Raymond to discuss these suggestions with the other administrators. Raymond was taken aback by the king's immediate action on his suggestion. It felt so out of the ordinary. He looked at the king, and a strange feeling welled up inside him. He almost blurted out the word, "Father," surprised by the unfamiliar warmth of being recognized. Finally, the king says that Dr. Ray never asked for anything for himself, and for that, he will receive a reward. Raymond stands speechless, shocked. The king steps closer to the Shadow Prince, raising his sword in the air before gently placing it on Raymond's shoulder, granting him the title of baronet. Though baronet is the lowest of noble titles, it still places him among the nobles. He feels honored and thanks the king. The king then brings the sword closer to the Shadow Prince's face and asks what family name he would like to carry, anything he desires. Without second, Dr. Ray replies that he would like to be called Pennon. The king nods solemnly and takes an oath, proclaiming that from now on, Raymond shall be called Baronet Pennon, swearing by Odin himself, as Raymond is his son. The name Pennon is his mother's surname, and it now become part of the noble records. Somewhere far away, a man watches this ceremony through a magic ball. He questions how an illegitimate child can become a baronet. Such a thing is unheard of. And yet, as the son of Odin, Raymond not only receives noble status but is also given an evaluation of a higher rank. The man is stunned by Raymond's levels and achievements, left speechless by the results he sees. His expression turns dark. He reconsiders his plans, thinking to himself that Dr. Ray is more than just a skilled fighter. He's becoming a symbol. The man instructs his companions to handle any clues that may have been left behind. Their sinister plan is just beginning. The hints lie in the innocents who were killed, their silence hiding secrets. One of the men replies with a sly smile, saying that the traces are long gone. He lifts a wine glass and, with hatred dripping from every word, complains about how irritating Raymond's eye color is. Emerald green, the symbol of the royal family. That color haunts him. Meanwhile, in the slums, people cheer and praise Raymond. They say that not even the heavens could have produced a man like him. He's like an angel, saving lives and transforming their fate. A prompt appears before Raymond. He has reached a bonus level. More people begin to know his name, and more voices start talking about him. His kindness moves people to tears. His reputation rises, his levels increase, and his titles begin to improve. He's becoming known as the savior of the slums. Raymond smiles, filled with happiness. He turns to Hansen and asks who he is himself. Hansen smiles back and replies that he is a Baronet Pennon. Raymond asks him again, savoring the sound of it. Hansen repeats with pride, Baronet Pennon. Raymond can't stop smiling. He reminds himself that he's a noble now, a baronet. He's no longer just a slum-born child. Looking at his current level, Raymond speaks to Hansen about how close he is to another upgrade. With just a little more effort, he knows he'll be promoted again. The two walk away, with Hansen cheering for Baronet Pennon and Dr. Ray filled with motivation. Elsewhere at the Prime Minister's office, Rao Kaplan arrives. He's the youngest top scorer from the Martial Arts Academy, a noble by birth, and a member of a first-class family known for their wealth and influence. He can afford anything he desires. As he sits across from the Prime Minister, he proudly begins listing his achievements. After listening carefully, the Prime Minister offers him unexpected advice. He should seek help from Ray, as no one knows the Bay region as well as he does. Rao Kaplan is stunned. He wonders how someone of noble status like himself is supposed to talk to an illegitimate child like Ray, let alone work with him. The very thought unsettles him, but almost instantly he catches himself. He scolds his own thinking, realizing that one cannot judge someone by their origins. He decides he will see the truth for himself. He must find out who Raymond truly is with his own eyes, not through the filter of bloodlines or status. He reaches the Bay region in a carriage, observing the atmosphere with his eyes. He remembers how demonic the image of the Bay used to be in the public's mind. He thinks to himself, noting how much the atmosphere has changed, it's not as gloomy as it was before. The carriage rider looks at him, turns his head, and thanks him, calling him Prince. Rao, grinning with attitude, asks, "What prince?" The rider quickly apologizes for calling him that, and then tells him about Ray, the prince, the savior of the slums. Rao thinks to himself, how can a person like him change so much? The rider starts telling him about all the times Raymond has saved them from danger, giving the slums a new life. Rao's face becomes gloomy, clearly tense. He angrily stops the carriage and steps onto the road. The carriage driver keeps talking about Raymond's greatness, but Rao can't bear it anymore. He looks around the place with fierce eyes, reminding himself of all the times people praised Ray, how good of a person he is, how he saved so many lives, and the goodness he brought to the Republic of Slums. Rao thinks to himself that this much praise can't be real. No one can be that good. The driver keeps going on and on about the prince, and Rao is so sure this isn't the real face of Ray. He must be pretending. Rao is confused, and if Raymond is truly that nice, he must be a saint. Rao goes to meet Ray, who is busy with his work. Confidently standing at the door, Rao introduces himself as the new administrator of the Bay region. Healer Ray, focused on his tasks, listens, but politely declines the invitation to talk, saying he's too busy. Meanwhile, Raymond thinks to himself that Rao looks suspicious and probably came to pick a fight, something he has no interest in. He tries to act strong and unbothered by the Kaplans and Rao. Rao takes a seat while Raymond continues working. As he watches Ray, Rao thinks to himself that Dr. Ray seems pretty friendly, very different from other healers he's seen before. Then their eyes meet, and Rao is completely shocked. He thinks to himself that Dr. Ray must be pretending to be good. Surely he's evil on the inside. Is it the money he's after? Or the reputation? Or is he just creating a fake image? Raymond pauses, finishes his work, and smiles at the patient. He thinks to himself that the friendlier he is, the more his reputation will grow, and he'll earn a lot of money. As the administrator leaves, Raymond feels relieved he's gone. Afterward, Rao thinks to himself that Dr. Ray hasn't done anything wrong yet, so he can't charge him with anything. But he decides he'll keep a close eye on him. Sometime later, someone knocks rapidly at the door. Hansen rushes to answer and finds a man unconscious, needing urgent healing. Raymond is called. The man, a stranger, had suddenly passed out in the middle of nowhere. The soon-to-be great healer examines him and finds that he's in a coma, his brain completely shut down. He is no longer alive. The person who brought the unconscious man starts crying, confronting the Shadow Prince in desperation. Dr. Ray, feeling a strange sensation he hasn't experienced before, asks about the patient's last activities, trying to piece together what went wrong. Using his healing abilities, he discovers that there was internal bleeding in the person's head, which ultimately caused his death. 3 days later, Hansen rushes to the Shadow Prince with urgent news, telling him that someone else has died too. Hansen tells Raymond that the woman died in the same way the man in the alley did 3 days ago. Dr. Ray, confused, wonders how something could spread so easily through the blood cells, making all the blood platelets burst. He realizes this isn't just a disease, it's a virus spreading quickly. He worries about how the rumors will blow up once someone finds out. Meanwhile, panic rises in the slums as people talk about how the same thing has happened again, mentioning how much blood the woman spilled. Rao seizes the opportunity to create a stage for himself to speak. After knocking on a door, he assures the people that, as the new administrator, he will definitely solve the mystery behind this. The crowd murmurs, with some people doubting Lao's ability to handle the situation because of his young age. He tries to calm them down, but the shouting only grows louder. Then, a voice rises in praise of Prince Ray, saying he saved them without fear, and soon the crowd starts chanting his name. Inside, Raymond panics, holding his head, wondering what he should do to stop the deadly virus. A prompt appears, telling him he has a quest to fight the contagion. He thinks about it and walks out of his house, deciding to take action, though he's also thinking about the money and rewards he might get if he succeeds. As he steps outside, he sees Lao standing there, staring at him with disgust. Lao tells Raymond he can't fool him and accuses him of sitting back while people are dying. Lao says he will help the people himself and slams the door shut. Raymond stands silently thinking, maybe Lao should handle it, but then he remembers Lao doesn't know about epidemiology. Only he does. Though his degree alone may not be enough, Raymond decides to go out again and tells the people he's taking the matter into his own hands. Outside, Raymond sees Lao already writing public notices, advising people on what to do. Raymond heads back inside and calls Hansen for help. He orders him to get every book available on the subject and starts working. He also asks Hansen to list out all the do's and don'ts during a contagion. Raymond spends the entire night reading, from dusk till dawn. When he gets tired, he speaks to himself, saying it still isn't enough without knowing the origin. His first suspicion falls on the people living on the other side of the Bay region, the semi-demons. They may look human, but they are half-devil creatures, evil and bloodthirsty. He starts connecting the dots but finds no concrete clues. He keeps working, pushing through exhaustion, searching for an answer. The next morning, Raymond was at his counter when someone knocked hard and called his name. Raymond answered, Baronet Pennon, and asked if he knew them. The man replies, panicked, that he's from the Kaoplan house and that Lao suddenly passed out. Raymond stands up in shock, and both of them rush to Lao's place. On the way, the Kaoplan house manager explains that the household is in debt and Lao is under heavy pressure. Raymond realized that even though Lao was from a wealthy background, he was facing similar hardships. When they arrived, Raymond quickly checked on Lao and told everyone that he hadn't contracted the virus. Since he's been working closely with the people of the Bay region, it might be another illness. Lao woke up and threw his pillow at this soon-to-be great healer, refusing his help. Raymond was embarrassed and wondered if he should go. After a while, the manager speaks to Lao, informing him that they've been asked for 2,000 penas, If he doesn't get treatment, he'll die like the others. Despite this, Lau's ego remains high. He says he doesn't want treatment from a liar like Raymond. Raymond interjects, asking them not to pay him like this. He will want something else from them, not money. He approaches Lau's bed, holds his hand, and starts to ask why Lau always picks fights with him. Does Lau really think he's a liar who treats people just for money? He tells Lau there's nothing personal between them. As a patient, Lau is his first priority. Lau, confused, asks why Raymond is being so sincere about his safety. Raymond cleverly wins his heart with his pure intentions. The house help asks Lau why he's being so mean when Raymond is here to help out of nothing but goodwill. Lau agrees. After the argument, the soon-to-be great healer explains to Lau how the virus works. He tells him he has a cure and will try his best to save the people of the region. He informs Lau that he will now inject someone else's blood into his bloodstream. Lau denies him, but Ray insists there's no other means of healing. Raymond convinces him by saying he'll first inject the blood into his own body, and if nothing bad happens, then he'll use the cure on Lau. He adds that if it works, they owe him something valuable. He asks for the blood of a perfectly healthy human being, and the manager steps forward, offering his own blood with full dedication. The soon-to-be great healer explains how he's going to transfer the blood from one person to another, carefully dividing it into test tubes, testing it, and trying to kill the expired blood in their veins. He starts using his magic by buying magic points and leveling up his status. He looks at his hand, pushing himself as hard as he can. With each step, he unlocks more spells, his level rises, and his qualities improve. The prompts shift into mana, and now he becomes a mana holder. His mana holder pace increases, and he feels himself being enlightened by the study of mana. He activates his mana vein, not even sure what's happening to him, as his blood vessels throb with the buildup of mana, and his blood begins to change. His abilities and senses grow sharper. He tries to locate the mana vessel in his blood, feeling the tension building. He uses his mana points to understand how the mana ratio works and realizes it has increased. His body feels like it's overflowing with power. He uses his wind magic spell and thinks to himself that even the lowest level of drained mana could wipe out everything, so he starts focusing on small areas. Slowly, he gains control of the magic. He successfully separates the blood into 3 parts: the white blood cells, the plasma, and the pure red blood. He smiles at the result, feeling proud of his success. Now he can cure Lau with it. Without wasting time, he picks up the blood and heads straight to him. After some days, they both talk about how fast Lau has recovered and how there's no more danger to his life. Raymond grins inwardly, thinking to himself, time for the reward. Lau thanks Ray, bowing to him, and Dr. Ray teases him, asking if he could be a little louder since he can barely hear him. Lau, clearly annoyed, repeats it again. Later on, Lau asked Raymond what kind of reward he wanted. Without even cracking a smile, Raymond replied that he just wanted Lau to treat him like a superior, especially since Lau disliked him so much before. That was all he asked for. Lau glared at this soon-to-be great healer, annoyed, wondering if this was what Raymond truly desired. Before Lau could speak, Raymond interrupted, stating that he was just a healer, and healers don't expect payment from their patients. With the purest look in his eyes, Raymond stares at Lau. Lau begins to wonder, is he really this nice? Is he some kind of saint? Meanwhile, the novice healer is thinking, yes, just like this. I'll lure Lau my way and climb my way up. My reputation will grow with the support of chiefs like Lau. His innocent eyes deceive Lau again, who now thinks, he can't be this nice. He must be pretending just to use people. Watching him, Hansen asks if he really doesn't want anything in return for saving Lau. Lau finally believes that there's no one kinder than Raymond as a healer. He bows again and apologizes for all the times he picked on him. Healer Ray, smirking in his head, thinks, got him. His levels are rising fast, and he can already feel he's about to hit the next stage in medical history. After some days, with Lau's name backing him, the great healer and his team are able to help all the people in the Bay region. The deaths finally stop. They begin the blood transfusions, and just like that, Raymond's healing powers grow, and so does his reputation. Meanwhile, the cult that created the disease gathers in secret, furious over their failure to spread the virus. This was supposed to be the end of Ray, but now he's using one of the ancient techniques again. Cloaked in robes, they chant around a crystal ball, cursing the great healer and saying he should be dead by now, debating whether it's time to get rid of him for good. Back in Houston, the great healer and Lau are cleaning and preparing a place for more patients when Raymond starts thinking about how the disease spreads. He pondered where the illness came from, realizing it wiped out blood platelets fast. Then it clicked that rats must be the cause. They're known carriers of plague-like diseases, but there are no rats in Houston. Rats are only found in Milkia, and the pastime plague started there. He asks Lau where he was when he first got sick. Lau mentions seeing a rat with white and black stripes on its back. That's when Raymond cracks the case. The rats are the carriers. Someone must have released them on purpose. Since Houston doesn't have rats naturally, it had to be a smuggler. Only a few merchants travel between regions, and one of them must have brought the rats in. He tells Lau about his theory and orders him to go to the palace and inform the king, saying the king might be able to help them. Raymond also warns him not to mention that the theory came from him. There are too many people in the palace who are jealous of him, and besides, he's still on the wanted list. Instead, he wants Lao to say that he discovered it himself and now needs the king's help. Lao, thinking about Raymond's pure intentions, reflects to himself, how could I have ever doubted someone like Raymond? He finally agrees and tells him he'll carry out his sir's order. After some days, Lao reaches the palace and tells the king the full story of what happened in the Bay region. The king asks him for details about the disease, and Lao replies that he's completely sure of what he's saying, thinking to himself that he's finally having a proper conversation with the king. The royal committee murmurs among themselves, questioning how something like this could happen and whether others might still be at risk. The king wanted to quarantine the capital, but asked Lao how many were dead. Lao said only 2. The king was surprised, thinking it was a bad disease. Lao replied that Baronet Pennon found a cure, even though he felt bad for taking credit. The king then wondered if Baronet Pennon also identified the disease, recalling Pennon's recent success and now marveling at his apparent city-saving talent. Lao boldly stated that Pennon had not only figured out the disease, but also created the cure. Prime Minister Galman silently congratulated himself for bringing those two together. Then the 4th prince steps forward, trying to take control of the situation, saying he'll personally take care of every rat in the Bay region. He's thinking about how much he hates Ray, especially after Raymond took down the Dark Guild when his own people were involved. Wanting to gain some recognition, the prince asks the king for permission to lead the effort. The king agrees, but Galman raises a question, asking if the prince's soldiers are even capable of handling the job. Soon enough, the soldiers prove useless. They fail to act quickly, and the 4th prince ends up yelling at them. The people of the Bay start complaining, saying the soldiers are doing nothing but damaging their property. They all notice how the soldiers have the tools to catch the rats, but still can't manage to catch a single one. Raymond thinks to himself that if the soldiers take any longer, the rat population will explode, and his clinic won't be able to handle the pressure. Worried, he heads to his kitchen and starts making a dish called pastime pie, which is basically cheese with the most disgusting smell imaginable, strong enough to lure rats in. He meticulously mixed the rat poison, then shifted his focus to making the bait taste irresistible to the rats. As he did this, his skills leveled up again. Now he could cook amazing food and enhance flavors expertly. He sighed, thinking he was always the one saving people. He quietly approached the 4th prince, who had a pot pie. Raymond noticed a rat and asked why Almond was there. Right then, the prince put the pie down, and a bunch of rats swarmed it and started eating. Raymond shoves him out of the way and quickly places another pie down. One by one, all the rats pour out into the open, right in front of the stunned soldiers. The people in the Bay region saw this as a miracle and cheered for their prince, yelling that he saved them again. But the 4th prince was angry and told them not to praise him or say his name. The crowd quickly apologizes and turns their praise to Baronet Pennon instead. Even the soldiers, going against their commander, start siding with Ray. The people began saying that Sadal's method was useless and that the cult's plans had failed again, forcing them to retreat for now. One of the soldiers thinks Prince Settle's method is basically useless, especially after seeing him order the honorable royal guards to hunt rats with swords in the first place. That just doesn't make any sense. Besides that, he thinks Baronet Pennon's method was way simpler and way more effective. He keeps watching Ray, not really sure what the guy is up to. Deep down, he's kind of impressed, even a bit proud, seeing how the Shadow Prince, a guy who clearly never worked a real day in his life or trained in swordsmanship, somehow handles a sword with such control. His stance and posture definitely look untrained, but there's something weirdly solid about it. He actually kind of resembles a real knight. Eventually, the soldier lets Ray, Baronet Pennon, know that he'll be receiving a reward from the palace, and that news makes Raymond light up with excitement. Inside the palace, the novice healer is cursing Lao under his breath for mentioning his name, even though he made it clear he wanted to stay under the radar and avoid getting caught up in any political mess. He has zero interest in glory. Meanwhile, the king asks Raymond what kind of reward he'd prefer. The soon-to-be great healer figures his time is up, so he decides to just ask for money and get the deal over with. The king is a bit surprised by such a small request in exchange for such a huge achievement, but the soon-to-be great healer explains that simple pay is enough. He only did what was required of him as a healer. Deep down, he knows that asking for anything more grand would only attract more attention, which he definitely doesn't want. The money will be enough to pay off his debts, especially since his last so-called reward only added to them when he had to help Vay's people. The old hag is stunned that a jerk like him would make such a humble decision and wonders if maybe his royal bloodline has something to do with it. The king ends up granting Raymond's request, rewarding him just as he asked. Garmin, watching all of this, sees Ray as a selfless healer who chose the simplest reward possible. But right then, Garmin steps in, telling the king that money isn't enough, and suggests they give Raymond the legendary Staff of Light. That definitely catches Raymond off guard, to think they'd actually give him something as high-ranking as the Staff of Light. The Staff of Light is a healing relic that dates back 100 years, once used by the Great X healer Alex. It's not just a tool, it's a symbol of a healer's pride, something so grand it's usually passed down as a family heirloom. It's the kind of reward worthy of someone who stopped a deadly virus from overtaking the capital. The king fully agrees with the idea, Dr. Ray, on the other hand, has mixed feelings. With his terrible healing grade, he wonders if he even deserves it. Still, the king also awards him 10,000 pina, which makes Raymond happy. It's not enough to wipe out all his debts, but it's a good chunk that makes him feel a lot lighter. Right then, he checks his quest rewards and sees he's reached level 40. Just as he's processing all that, the king suddenly asks if he has anything more to discuss, which throws Raymond off a bit. Both the king and Garmin still don't understand how a virus from Mycalin almost managed to spread in Vey. Raymond realizes the king is thinking the exact same thing he is. Raymond decides it's time to lay everything out and step back from the mess, so he comes clean and admits he suspects someone intentionally spread the virus in the capital. He debunks Garmin's theory about the merchants being behind it and leaves the conspiracy stuff to the people in power while he focuses on making a fortune healing people. But then the king hits him with a sharp question, as if he already knows Raymond has a specific person in mind. Raymond thinks it has to be someone who would have gained big time if the whole plan had succeeded. With the capital nearly thrown into chaos, he believes the king is thinking the same way, that the real culprit is someone who stood to benefit the most. Not to mention, this person might have a serious influence, or be clever enough to pull off the stunt of secretly transporting a virus from far away without getting caught. The king takes all of this into account, and then, in a calm but clear voice, tells Raymond that Baronet Pennon's efforts are worthy of his gratitude on behalf of Houston. Raymond's eyes go wide, shocked to receive the greatest honor of all. Gratitude from the king is rare. He bows deeply, thanking him, and it's the first time he's ever received gratitude from his father. Afterwards, Raymond can't figure out why he's feeling so emotional. He tells himself not to take it this deep. Still, he makes a solid plan to set aside 500 pina for some juicy beef. For curing the unidentified contagion, his quest reward unlocks, giving him 20 skill points and bumping his level up to 40. From this point on, he's officially a senior resident, with boosts to his surgery skill and general medicine level, and he also unlocks the internal medicine skill. When asked, the king found Raymond's thoughts reasonable, which made Garmin start to realize that Dr. Ray's abilities might not be limited to just healing. He had thought Raymond's ideas about reforming Vey were good, but now, after everything, Garmin sees Ray as more knowledgeable than most decent bureaucrats. What surprises him more is the growing thought that maybe the king sees Ray highly too, not just as a subject, but as a son. When asked, Garmin replies that only one place has the vicious power to send a virus and cause chaos in the kingdom. Just thinking about it sends chills down his spine, and that's the kingdom of Droton, the hostile state of Houston. The war has been going on for 100 years now, which makes them the obvious suspect, especially after the assassination attempt on the king. The king decides to keep this intel restricted until there's more solid evidence. Meanwhile, at Maple Infirmary in Rim Quarter, rumors are spreading like wildfire about how the Shadow Prince managed to defeat the plague across the capital. No one can believe the same guy who spent 5 years messing around in Belland Infirmary is the one who pulled this off and even got awarded the Staff of Light. The big shots at Maple can't handle the fact that the legendary great healer Alex's staff is now in the hands of someone they call a bastard and a fake healer. What makes it worse is that Vey is right next to Maple, and their reputation is now on the line. Lady Christine is furious that their meetings are turning into slander-filled gossip sessions. Lady Christine DeLevin, daughter of one of Houston's 3 dukes, is one of Maple's top healers with her grade B+ healing. She's had enough of hearing nobodies putting Baronet Pennon's name above the table and walks out to go treat her patient. She doesn't care for sitting around with those whiny jerks, but her curiosity in medical sciences is real, and she plans to confront him for the sake of her patient. Over at Maple, the crowd of healers is having a hard time swallowing soon-to-be great healer's success, but with the king's approval backing him, there's not much they can do. However, Baron Canton, a grade C healer and the director of Maple Infirmary, sees a different angle. He believes that Dr. Ray's decertification might actually be the perfect tool to bring him down. With the time coming up for the compulsory education that every new healer has to go through, they're already scheming to make Raymond fail. In the minds of the Maple healers, they've seen how a grade C healer like Canton took the director's seat by playing political games, using his influence like a monopoly. Anyone who clashed with him conveniently disappeared from the Rim Quarter. Baron Canton enjoys the fear he brings and knows that if Ray keeps climbing the ladder of success, things could get bad for him. Now that Canton's been put in charge of this year's compulsory education, he plans to simply make Raymond fail, and honestly, everyone in the room seems to love the idea. At Ray's infirmary in Vey, Lau spots him receiving a notice for the compulsory education test meant for new healers. The guy really has no choice but to attend since everyone under grade B is required to take it. Hansen bursts in like a flash, warning Raymond not to go. He says he talked to someone from Maple Infirmary and found out they're scheming to make Ray fail. That's all Lau needs to hear to get fired up, already sure that Baron Canton is pulling the strings. But Raymond stays cool and confident, saying it's just a simple class and he's far from a beginner now. His calm attitude lifts both Lau and Hansen's spirits too. After all, the guy is a level 40 senior resident with 110 experience points, 225 skill points, and a mana of 7, Not to mention, the lad's got a wide range of academic skills under his belt, including surgery at grade C, internal medicine at grade D, general medicine at grade B, beginner medicine at grade B, herbology at grade S, pathology at grade A, and alchemy at grade D. Leveling up to senior residency has boosted his growth rate in both knowledge and surgical skills, along with his academic progress. The surgeon's experience is a valuable perk that adds +3 every time he performs surgery. The more knowledge he gains, the more his stats rise. With his level of precision and experience, grade C and D healers don't stand a chance. That's why he's feeling confident about standing out among the lower grade healers. His win is almost guaranteed. The Shadow Prince makes it clear that he's aiming for the top score. Just then, his next quest loads up, and it's titled Acing the Mandatory Test. The condition is to go for top scores to earn a bonus level up, 15 skill points, and even push the public to reconsider the value of medical science. But the real reason behind Ray's motivation is the prize of 1,000 penna awarded to the top student of the year. Lau and Hansen can't handle how the Shadow Prince suddenly lights up, all fired up by the thought of buying meat. Meanwhile, Hansen starts feeling guilty for ever doubting him, realizing Raymond's true goal all along has been to revolutionize healing for the sake of the sick. Now he's fired up too. Lau, on the other hand, believes Raymond is aiming to break those stubborn old healers and their outdated beliefs. Moreover, Lau admits he used to suspect Raymond of being a greedy bastard, but now he's seriously wondering if Raymond's actually chasing money or something else. That comment stings Raymond a little, but before he can say anything, Lau shakes his hand to apologize for thinking he was materialistic. From that moment on, they both label Raymond as the most honorable man in the world. Dr. Ray, completely clueless about the emotional drama unfolding, is just thinking about how good the meat will taste once he gets the prize money. Hansen, fully convinced our doc's going to win, even plans to order early. And since Ray's always been too generous, he invites Lau to join the upcoming feast, knowing Lau's measly pay wouldn't let him enjoy a decent meal otherwise. With that, his two supportive lads wish him all the best. Later on, at Houston Kingdom's Royal Academy in the St. Alex Assembly Hall, Baron Canton steps up to welcome everyone as the teacher for this year's compulsory education. Standing before a crowd of excellent healers, Baron Canton can't wait to drag Raymond's name through the mud, pointing him out as the one person who doesn't belong. Whispers and rumors start flying, branding Raymond as some scandalous, fraudulent scum. Canton even jokes around with his buddies about there being a rat among them, clearly taking shots at Baron Pennon, also known as Raymond. Hansen's about to explode from rage at this crusty old man, but Ray, with his steel of heart skill, stays completely unfazed. The ridicule bounces off him like nothing, and he coolly activates his facing the boar's skill. With a rush of confidence, he finally breaks the awkward silence, calmly telling Canton that it's fine, but it sounds like the man's just imagining things. The soon-to-be great healer explains that, as a fellow healer with a broad mindset, he can understand a lot of things, but he's genuinely surprised to see a man of Baron Canton's reputation caught up in delusions. He even expresses concern for Canton's health, suggesting it might be the early signs of dementia, and that one stings hard. Baron Canton quickly brushes it off and tells everyone to take their seats and enjoy the company. Then a blonde from Maple Linden offers Hansen a seat, but the bullies yank Linden back and sneer that seats are only for real healers, not dirty rats of witchcraft. Linden gets shamed in front of everyone, but Ray steps in and flashes his badge of honor, reminding them that a true healer shows respect in front of St. Alex's badge. Suddenly, Linden loudly congratulates Ray, drawing everyone's attention. Hansen wastes no time and calls out the jerks, saying they're the real rats here, slandering others instead of acting like proper healers. Baron Canton quickly shuts down the ruckus by announcing the rules for the first test. He emphasizes that healing power is the most important skill and makes up 50% of the total score. Anyone scoring under 60 must give up their license on the spot. He also makes it clear that a grade F means total failure. Canton clearly believes Ray must have pulled strings to get the king's support, but that won't help him here. If Ray can't pass the healing power test, failure is inevitable. Meanwhile, the great healer and Hansen are quietly trying to figure out their next move. That's when Ray speaks up and asks if there are any bonus points for healers whose healing grade went up. Hansen looks totally confused. Baron Canton can't hide his smug grin after hearing what he thinks is such a ridiculous question. Healing mana, after all, is something people are born with and can't change, no matter how hard they try. Knowing Raymond's reputation as a full-fledged delinquent, Canton decides to feed him some false hope just to enjoy his downfall. He actually declares that the bonus point idea will count in this test, thinking it'll just humiliate Raymond further. But Ray grins, knowing full well that the old man just walked into his trap. Linden, however, is genuinely worried, since it's obvious to anyone that healing grades can't be increased, at least not normally. The lad is totally confused by Raymond's calm attitude. Baron Canton continues testing everyone until it's Linden's turn, and he ends up getting a grade D. Then comes Raymond's turn. Canton calls out for Baronet Pennon to show his healing powers, and Dr. Ray confidently raises his hand. Canton can't help but smile mischievously, thinking this will be the moment Raymond embarrasses himself. Still, the Shadow Prince makes sure to confirm that the bonus points are officially on the table, and Canton mocks him, saying it's irrelevant since he won't score high anyway. Lyndon, who's still concerned about Ray, starts to feel something strange just by looking at his hands. Canton repeats that no one can raise their grade just by trying harder. Normally, Raymond's luck would land him a random grade like anyone else, but this time he activates his mana, unlocking the 4th mana storage center called Mana Vein. This triggers the Mana Flux skill, which transfers blood and energy into the upper chi center known as Mana Channel, the middle one called Mana Heart, and the lower one known as Mana Hole. It turns out he got this skill after awakening the Mana Vein, something no one expected. Because of this, Raymond can now use his mana for more than just casting spells. Thankfully, his mana stats have grown from 1 to 7.5. It might not sound like a huge leap, but even small, steady progress can make a big difference, just like how single drops of water can eventually soak the floor. So, by sending every bit of his mana into his mana channel, the flow of energy becomes impossible to ignore. The crowd is drawn to it, and Baron Canton is absolutely stunned when he sees Grade C healing powers. He's completely speechless. Meanwhile, the senior resident is bouncing with joy on the inside for getting Grade C. Of course, it's basically unheard of for someone to develop healing abilities like this, since it's supposed to be innate, coming from the upper chi centers. He obviously can't go around saying he has a 7.5 mana stat that lines up with Grade C, but flooding all his mana outward definitely gave off that impression. The Baron's mind is blown, witnessing what looks like a straight-up miracle. Dr. Ray, with a smug smile, casually credits his hard work caring for patients. Even though healing is usually seen as a talent you're born with, Baronet Pennon somehow managed to push beyond that and actually improve it. Lyndon was born a Grade D healer, which meant there were limits to how much he could help people, but he imagines breaking through those limitations. Later on, Ray, the Baronet Pennon, receives the highest score in the compulsory education at St. Alex Royal Academy. Because of his dedication to studying hard, he received the highest scores. Coming up are the writing exam, knowledge of the human body, treatment debates, and herbology, all subjects he had already mastered even before the medical science miracle happened to him. Raymond knows he's still lacking in pure healing power, so he puts in extra effort to make up for it. But when it comes to medical knowledge, no one even comes close. Plus, his intelligence stat recently shot up to 23, which helps him make better use of everything he's learned. Baron Canton is clearly not handling any of this well and can't hide the disgust on his face, but Ray still shines like a diamond. The other healers are completely stunned, jaws practically hitting the floor as they watch Ray get the top scores. Most of them are convinced something must be off. Right there on stage, Ray flashes a big grin like a happy-go-lucky goat and teases the others, asking if they're working hard and losing sleep yet. He even throws in a jab, hoping they're not just planning to settle for being a bunch of C ranks. Up next, the Baron pulls in a cart, knowing Raymond's on the verge of becoming the top scorer, and he's already lost his chance to disqualify him. Healer Ray and Hansen are now shining in a whole new light, and Baron Canton just can't stand it. This fussy jerk still has an ace up his sleeve, planning to give Raymond an injury he can never heal. Without wasting time, he announces the final practical exam. When he yanks the cloth off the cart, everyone loses their minds at the sight of an orc monster. Hansen's freaking out like a headless chicken. Baron explains that the orc has harmed a lot of people, but for today, he's their patient. He assures them that the orc has been given plenty of anesthetic herbs, so no one's in danger. With a mischievous grin, he commands them to heal the wound on the orc's body. Since Raymond is first, Baron had already decided to inflict a wound impossible for him to heal. Without hesitation, he stabs the orc, making all the healers flinch. That move wakes the beast, and the Baron starts shaking like a leaf under its towering shadow. To make things worse, the orc's leash comes loose, and it's just about to go wild, swinging a punch that nearly smashes the Baron's face in.